Chapter 1091. Crack, crack, crack. At this moment, the Dark Emperor was no longer the same as before. His cultivation had reached second-grade sovereign, and after reverting to his original form, there was a clear increase in his strength. It wasn't difficult for him to deal with the pill puppets that were only in the first and second-grade sovereign realms. Facing the powerful attacks of the Dark Emperor, several pill puppets couldn't even resist for a second before they were devoured. The violent actions of the Dark Emperor caused Venerable Talisman Marshal to suck in a cold breath. Although Venerable Talisman Marshal was stronger than the Dark Emperor in terms of strength, he didn't dare to devour those pill puppets for no reason. Perhaps only an ancient clan like the Dark Emperor could devour the pill puppets without a change in expression. The combined might of the Dark Emperor and the sapling was extremely powerful. Practically in an instant, more than half of the pill puppets in the cavern had died. Boom! On the other hand, Ningyu's situation wasn't looking good. Venerable Fong did not hesitate to ignite his vitality to increase his strength, causing Ningyu to be unable to kill him in a short period of time. On the contrary, Ningyu was struck in the chest by Venerable Fong in a moment of carelessness, and his body flew out. Venerable Fong, come over quickly. Seeing that Venerable Fong had succeeded, Venerable Gong, who was on the shoulder of the pill puppet, immediately yelled out, "Let's go!" Venerable Fong knew that he wasn't Ningyu's opponent, so he tore space apart and charged towards the pill puppet. How could Ningyu let Venerable Fong escape? Ningyu knew that he couldn't let the tiger return to the mountain. Therefore, Ningyu channeled the vitality in his spiritual consciousness into the red demon sword. At the same time, he also channeled his 7th grade mid-stage soul power into the red demon sword. Whoosh! Not only was the sword light massive, it was also extremely powerful. A crack was torn open in space, and the sword light entered the crack, appearing beside Venerable Fong. No! Venerable Fong's perception was still very strong. As soon as the sword light appeared, he realized that something was wrong. He used all his strength so that he could reach Venerable Gong's side as soon as possible. Dreams were plentiful, but reality was harsh. Even though Venerable One Fong reacted in time, he was still half a beat too late. The sword light tore through the void and slashed at his chest. Venerable Fong's face darkened as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. The defeat this time could not be described as an unexpected turn of events, because even if he fought against Ningyu fair and square, there was no way he could win. At best, it could only be regarded as arrogant and conceited. What the F***CK are you waiting for? Hurry up and come over. Seeing that Venerable Fong was slightly stunned, Venerable Gong immediately shouted, Yes, let's hurry over." The more confused they were, the less organized they would be. Venerable Fong was only focused on spacing out. He did not even think of escaping. Puff! However, it was already too late for Venerable Fong to leave after such a long time. Lowering his head to look at the crimson flying sword in his heart, Venerable Fong extended his right hand and pointed at Ningyu. "How are you so powerful? How did you do it?" Halfway through his words, Venerable Fong's head tilted and he fell to the ground. At this moment, the pinnacle 6th grade human sovereign realm Dan puppet, Venerable Fong, had died in battle. Boom! Venerable Fong's sudden death made Venerable Gong's head feel as if it had exploded. A pinnacle 6th grade human sovereign, Venerable Fong, whose strength was on par with him, was killed just like that. Venerable Gong did not dare to believe this fact. In the beginning, he thought that the few cultivators that had entered the pill cave wouldn't be that strong due to their low cultivation. Even if they had saplings, he wouldn't be afraid. After all, he had a powerful unconscious Dan puppet. But from the looks of it, it wasn't that simple. "Brat, I admit that you're strong, but if you want to fight with this unconscious Dan puppet, you're clearly lacking." Taking a deep breath, Venerable Gong tried his best to calm himself down. In fact, Venerable Gong's eyeballs turned, and he started to negotiate with Ningyu. "Let's make a deal. I won't let the unconscious Dan puppet kill you, and you get your friend to stop." Venerable Gong was very clear about the destructive power of the purple-gold sky, devouring hound and the saplings. If he allowed them to continue like this, it wouldn't be long before all the Dan puppets in the pill cave would be devoured, except for him. This was the resource storage station of the Eastern Expedition Army. Once all the Dan puppets were devoured, this pill cave would completely explode. At that time, no one would be able to survive. If he didn't want the pill cave to explode, he had to at least leave one Dan puppet behind. Of course, Venerable Gong would not tell Ningyu about this for the time being. He was only negotiating with Ningyu first. "My friend, I can't give you orders," Ningyu said indifferently. "If you really want to make a deal with me, then first tell me where the resources in this pill cave are stored. Get them to stop. I'll bring you there right now." Venerable Gong said solemnly. "Dark Emperor, saplings, stop first." After a moment of silence, Ningyu could only choose to compromise for the time being. Ningyu did not have absolute confidence in dealing with the unconscious Dan puppet. Since Venerable Gong wanted to stop temporarily, he was happy to be at ease. He could use this time to digest the Dan puppets he devoured and adjust his mental state to its peak. Why stop? I can feel that if I devour all these guys, I can even advance to the 3rd grade Human Supreme Realm, or even the 4th grade Human Supreme Realm. The Dark Emperor's face was filled with depression as he grumbled. Although he was grumbling, the Dark Emperor knew that he had to stop. Unintentionally recognizing a pill puppet was no joke. Since the Dark Emperor had stopped, the saplings naturally stopped devouring as well. "Follow me." Seeing that the Dark Emperor and the rest had stopped devouring the Dan puppets, Venerable Gong brought the unconscious Dan puppet and walked towards the depths of the pill cave. Behind Venerable Gong, Ningyu and the rest looked at each other before following unhurriedly. "Ningyu, what should we do later?" The Dark Emperor was not a fool. He knew that Ningyu definitely had his reasons for choosing to believe in Venerable Gong. "We'll act according to the circumstances. Venerable Gong wants to kill me. I want to kill Venerable Gong too. It's that simple." Ningyu left behind this indifferent sentence and no longer spoke. The Dark Emperor's face was filled with black lines. Everyone understood the current situation. Venerable Gong was afraid that the unconscious Dan puppet was not Ningyu's match. After all, Ningyu had easily killed Venerable Fong. Ningyu was afraid that the unconscious Dan puppet was too strong for him to deal with. Both sides were suspicious and gradually came to a consensus. No one would make the first move. According to Ningyu's guess, Venerable Gong would probably attack once they reached the place where the resources were stored. At that time, a huge battle would be unavoidable. Therefore, on the way, Ningyu tried his best to recover and adjust his mental state to its peak. Moreover, Ningyu had arranged everything. Chapter 1092. 3 Saint Fruit Whoosh. There was a saying that went like this: plans couldn't keep up with changes. Ningyu had just arranged everything when the situation suddenly changed. The surrounding space split apart and 4 figures appeared in this region. Pinnacle 6th grade Human Sovereign. Looking at the 4 figures, Ningyu's heart skipped a beat, because those 4 figures weren't Dan Shi, but humans. For humans controlled by Venerable Gong and the rest. "Venerable Gong, do you think that you can kill me with those 4 pieces of trash?" Although he was worried, Ningyu maintained an indifferent expression. "If I can kill Venerable Fong, then I can kill them as well. Haha, I know that you can kill them. I summoned them not to kill you, but to hold you back." Venerable Gong said with a smile. "The resource storage point is up ahead. I'll let the unconscious Dan Shi devour some energy and let it advance to 8th grade Human Sovereign in a short period of time. You could kill Venerable Fong because he was only a Pinnacle 6th grade Human Sovereign. If I raise the cultivation of the unconscious Dan Shi to 8th grade Human Sovereign, what else can you use to fight me?" Ha ha ha. After laughing wildly, Venerable Gong raised his right hand and suddenly patted the shoulder of the unconscious Dan Shi Boom. The unconscious Dan Shi received the message and immediately sprinted into the distance. Stop him. Since his plan had already been disrupted, Ningyu couldn't be bothered anymore. He left and immediately tore through the void, charging towards Venerable Gong. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Evidently, the four pinnacle 6th grade human sovereigns wouldn't allow Ningyu to get past them. They stood side by side, firmly blocking Ningyu's path. Furthermore, the four pinnacle 6th grade human sovereigns were extremely powerful, only slightly weaker than Venerable Fawn. With the four of them blocking him, Ningyu wasn't 100% confident that he could get past them. Ningyu, leave the four of them to us. You must kill Venerable Gong. As long as you kill him, the unconscious Dan puppet will lose control. At that time, everyone will be safe. At the critical moment, Talisman Martial Supremacy shouted. All right. Ningyu nodded without much hesitation when he heard Venerable Talisman Martial Venerable's words. Go! The Talisman Supremacy, the Dark Emperor, and the sapling charged out in unison and engaged in a great battle with the four peak grade 6 human supremacies. As for the Sword of Evil and Yun Mu, since their consciousness was blurry and they did not have much fighting power, Ningyu temporarily left them here and went to chase after Honorable Gong alone. The Sword of Evil at his peak would naturally be of help. In his current state, the Sword of Evil couldn't even protect himself, let alone help. Whoosh! In order to catch up to Honorable Gong earlier, Ningyu drew out the energy in his consciousness and wrapped it around his ankle. As the energy burned, Ningyu's speed increased. You want to catch me? Venerable Gong turned around and looked at Ningyu. The corner of his lips rose as he took out a piece of royal-grade origin crystal and threw it into the mouth of the unconscious Dan puppet. I'm going to eat it. Venerable Gong's actions caused the corner of Ningyu's lips to twitch a few times. You only fed a piece of royal-grade origin crystal to an unconscious Dan puppet at the peak grade 7 human supremacy realm? Clearly, Venerable Gong had guessed what Ningyu was thinking. He took out a storage pouch and smiled at Ningyu before throwing the storage pouch into the mouth of the unconscious Dan puppet. F*CK this crystal. This time, Ningyu's face was filled with shock. Royal-grade origin crystals. The storage pouch was filled with royal-grade origin crystals. The amount was at least in the tens of thousands. Tens of thousands of royal-grade origin crystals were thrown into the mouth of the unconscious Dan puppet by Venerable Gong without so much as a frown. What waste! Moreover, Venerable Gong took out so many royal-grade origin crystals not to increase the strength of the Dan puppet, but to increase its speed. Whoosh! After swallowing and refining tens of thousands of royal-grade origin crystals, the speed of the unconscious Dan puppet had a qualitative increase. Originally, Ningyu could still follow closely behind him, but with Venerable Gong's actions, forget about following behind, he could not even see his back. Since Venerable Gong is willing to take out so many royal-grade origin crystals, it means that the resources in this pill cavern are huge. Ningyu could guess that the resources in this pill cavern would probably reach a terrifying level. Describing it as rich as a country would be very appropriate. Speed up, no matter how many resources there were. If he could not catch up to Venerable Gong and delay the unconscious Dan puppet, then everything would be futile. In order to catch up to the Dan puppet, Ningyu had no choice but to ignite his blood essence to increase his speed. After igniting his blood essence, Ningyu's speed increased by several folds. From the start, Venerable Gong was far away, but he gradually pulled back. What kind of freak is this? Venerable Gong thought that after using tens of thousands of royal-grade origin crystals, he would be able to shake off Ningyu for sure. Who would have thought that Ningyu would catch up again? I don't believe it. With a cold expression, Venerable Gong took out another storage pouch and threw it into the Dan puppet's mouth. Boom! As the storage pouch entered its stomach, the unconscious Dan puppet instantly erupted, and its speed increased by several folds. In another 3 minutes, I will reach the place where the resources are stored. At that time, I will feed the Dan puppet some heaven-defying elixirs, allowing its cultivation to reach the 8th grade human supreme realm in a short period of time. I don't believe that I can't kill you then. Turning back to look at Ningyu, who was gradually getting further away, Venerable Gong said with a faint smile. In the first 2 minutes, Venerable Gong was still a little worried, but in the third minute, he was completely relieved. After such a long time, Ningyu had not caught up. In the last minute, Ningyu would definitely not be able to catch up. Wah! After 3 minutes, Ningyu still had not caught up. In order to confirm that Ningyu had not left, Venerable Gong extended his perception and carefully probed the surroundings. A moment later, Venerable Gong took a deep breath and slowly retracted his perception. After a minute of probing, Venerable Gong finally confirmed that Ningyu had not caught up. Luckily, the resources of the entire pill cavern were stored in the natural cave. Otherwise, wouldn't they have snatched the resources stored at the entrance of the pill cavern? Venerable Gong felt a little scared. It was just as he had thought. If the resources were all stored at the entrance of the pill cavern, then Ningyu would definitely store all the resources and leave the pill cavern. Open! Venerable Gong formed seals in the air before suddenly pointing his finger. Bang! A cold light shot out from Venerable Gong's right hand and struck the stone door of the cave in the distance. Creak! The stone door seemed to be pushed by someone as it slowly opened. Not bad, not bad. The Tri-Saint fruit is about to ripen. As long as I devour and refine it, my cultivation can even rise to the 7th grade human supreme realm. Chapter 1093. Get rid of one. You come here too. Coming to the entrance of the cave in a few steps, Lord Gong paused for a moment, turned around, and waved his hand at the unintentional sense pellet puppet, saying, "Guard the stone door. Without my permission, no one is to let them take half a step into the cave." After thinking about it, Master Gong still felt uneasy. He stood at the entrance of the cave and slammed his hands against the stone walls on both sides. Rumble! The stone wall let out a rumbling sound and quickly returned to its original state. Not bad. Venerable Gong nodded his head slightly and walked into the depths of the cave without looking back. Buzz! Not long after Venerable Gong entered the cave, Ningyu appeared from the void at the side. It was not that Ningyu did not catch up to Venerable Gong, but he did not let Venerable Gong discover him. Along the way, Ningyu constantly avoided the probing of Venerable Gong's perception. There were even a few times when he was almost discovered by Venerable Gong. He might as well drag it out for 3 minutes, and finally followed Venerable Gong to this area. 3 sacred fruits. Ningyu squinted his eyes, and an excited look appeared on his face. The Trinity fruit was good stuff. According to Ningyu's guess, as long as he could consume the Tri-Saint fruit, he would be able to easily advance to 2nd grade supreme martial artist. With Ningyu's current strength, he could kill a pinnacle 6th grade sovereign, but he still couldn't confront a 7th grade sovereign. However, if he were to advance to 2nd grade human supreme martial artist, he would even be able to fight against an early 7th grade human supreme martial artist. In fact, if he used his trump card unexpectedly, he could even kill him. If you want to obtain the 3 sacred fruits, you must pass through the cave. Ningyu was secretly thinking of countermeasures. The unintentional consciousness pill puppet was only relatively strong, but its perception was not too powerful. Ningyu was confident that he could deceive everyone. However, Ningyu did not have absolute confidence in breaking the formation at the entrance of the cave. Before Venerable Gong left, he patted the stone wall with both hands. His purpose was to activate the formation at the entrance of the cave. Obviously, Master Gong had done it. I wonder if this cave has another entrance or exit. After pondering for a moment, Ningyu released all of his perception, hoping to find another exit. The Dark Emperor and the Talisman Martial Supremacy were in a dangerous situation. Outside the Pill Cave, Xiaolon was also in a bad situation. Ningyu knew what his mission was. He had to kill Venerable Gong, then control the pill puppet of unintentional sense to leave the pill cavern and help Xiaolon. At that time, not only would he be able to help Xiaolon solve the problem, but he would also be able to get rid of Xiaolon. Damn it. Sometimes the difference between ideals and reality was very small, but sometimes it was a difference of hundreds of years. After cursing in his heart, Ningyu began to carefully observe the formation, striving to break it in a short time. Drip, drip. Time always slipped away unknowingly. As Ningyu was trying hard to think of a way to break through the formation, Venerable Gong stared at the 3 saint fruit on the branch in the cave. He frowned slightly, feeling rather worried. The reason why Venerable Gong was worried wasn't because the 3 saint fruit had yet to ripen. On the contrary, the 3 saint fruit had already ripened. With his physique, there was a huge risk in consuming a fully ripened 3 saint fruit. If he was careless, he would die without a burial. The bold will be stuffed to death, and the cowardly will be starved to death. After a brief pondering, Venerable Gong clenched his teeth. No matter what, I'm still a pinnacle 6th grade sovereign. I don't believe that a single 3 saint fruit can do anything to me. Although he said that, Venerable Gong still did not dare to devour the 3 saint fruit. That's because he was clear that there were only 2 outcomes for him to devour the 3 saint fruit. Firstly, he would successfully reach the 7th grade sovereign realm. Secondly, his body would explode from the powerful energy of the 3 saint fruit, and he would disappear from this world. The ratio was as high as 1:9. That also meant that Venerable Gong only had a 10% chance of success and a 90% chance of failure. Rumble. Just when Venerable Gong was hesitating if he should devour the 3 saint fruit, an earth-shattering rumble resounded from the entrance of the cave. Shit! Hearing that voice, Venerable Gong's face drastically changed as he grabbed onto the 3 saint fruit and bolted out. Venerable Gong's speed was very fast to the extreme. In the blink of an eye, Venerable Gong had already arrived at the entrance of the cave. Seeing a familiar silhouette standing at the entrance of the cave, Venerable Gong clenched his fist to the point that crackling sounds could be heard as veins bulged on his forehead. Unconscious pellet puppet, quickly! Venerable Gong was only briefly stunned as he quickly recovered from his shock. He formed seals with both of his hands and immediately ordered the unconscious pellet puppet. Although he had no idea how Ningyu broke through the array at the entrance of the cave, Venerable Gong was clear that before he reached the 7th grade sovereign realm by devouring the 3 saint fruits, the only thing that could stop Ningyu was the unintentional sense pill puppet. As long as the unconscious pellet puppet obstructs Ningyu for a few minutes, I will immediately devour the 3 saint fruit. Venerable Gong inwardly made up his mind to devour the 3 saint fruit. Since it had come to this, he had no other choice. If he wanted to smoothly get rid of Ningyu, the only way was to devour the 3 saint fruit. If I had known this earlier, I would have given the unconscious pellet puppet all the energy beforehand. Venerable Gong was filled with regret. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world, and there was nothing he could do about it. Solitaire. Since he had already avoided the unconscious pellet puppet, how could Ningyu allow Venerable Gong to control it again? Therefore, Ningyu took out the red demon sword and slashed out in the air. That's all you've got. Sensing the ripples emitted from the sword ripples, Venerable Gong was a little dumbfounded. Logically speaking, Ningyu's attack power shouldn't be this weak. Isn't it a little bad to be distracted now? Ningyu grabbed onto the fleeting opportunity. He instantly tore through the void and arrived before Venerable Gong. All the energy in his sea of consciousness gathered in his right fist. Under Venerable Gong's shocked gaze, he punched at his heart. Bang! The terrifying force from his heart caused Venerable Gong's expression to become unusually hideous. Venerable Gong's hideous expression was very special. From the initial fear to the final ecstasy. Bang! In the end, Venerable Gong directly exploded. Fortunately, when Venerable Gong exploded, Ningyu used a secret technique to hide below. Otherwise, this explosion alone would have been enough to take his little life. Creak! After Venerable Gong was killed, the unconscious pellet puppet in the distance also stopped. Whoosh! After confirming that the unconscious pellet puppet was completely unable to move, the worry in Ningyu's heart was slightly alleviated. That's right, the tri-sacred fruit. After a short silence, Ningyu shouted loudly. He hurriedly extended his perception and began to search left and right. The tri-sacred fruit was good stuff. It would be too much of a pity to lose it. Over there, Ningyu did not search for long before he found the tri-sacred fruit at the corner of the cave. Rustle. Moving his feet, Ningyu quickly came before the tri-sacred fruit and picked it up. Rumble. Chapter 1094. What's going on? Oh no. Ningyu's expression changed drastically when he felt the cave shaking. He immediately extended his senses to see how many Dharma treasures and elixirs there were in the cave. I can't believe it. Sometimes, the more one knew, the more painful it was. It was a tragedy to be able to see so many Dharma treasures and elixirs, but not be able to get them. 10 seconds until the cave collapses. A terrifying light burst forth from Ningyu's eyes, and he immediately summoned his storage ring, racing against time as he busied himself in the cave. Drip, drip. 10 seconds passed in the blink of an eye. When the 11th second arrived, Ningyu's figure flashed, and he dashed out of the cave at a shocking speed. You go into the storage ring, too. Passing by the unconscious pill puppet, Ningyu controlled the storage ring to emit a beam of light and stored the unconscious pill puppet into the storage ring. Rumble. As soon as Ningyu left the cave collapsed. The shockwave caused by the collapse of the cave made Ningyu's expression turn ugly. He immediately retreated. A person's strength was insignificant. In the face of the cave collapsing, Ningyu had no other choice. Moreover, the Dark Emperor and the others were fighting with 4 peak 6th grade human sovereigns. Ningyu had no time to search for Dharma treasures and elixirs here. What he needed to do was to return to the Dark Emperor as soon as possible. Why are they all royal grade origin crystals? As he flew, Ningyu extended his soul power into the storage ring. After 10 seconds of searching, not even a tenth of the storage ring was filled. Even so, there were still a lot of origin crystals in the storage ring. Royal grade origin crystals. To be exact, there were about 1 million of them. 1 million royal grade origin crystals. Just thinking about it made one's blood boil. However, Ningyu was not too satisfied. To him, Dharma treasures and elixirs were more precious than royal grade origin crystals. Forget it. Let's raise the cultivation of the unconscious Dan puppet to the early phase 8th grade sovereign realm. With a slight frown, Ningyu directly took out 100,000 royal grade origin crystals from his storage ring and threw them all into the unconscious pill puppet's mouth. Kacha! As the royal grade essence crystal entered its stomach, the unintentional consciousness pill puppet seemed to be devouring it. The unintentional consciousness pill puppet took 2 minutes to completely refine 100,000 royal grade essence crystals. Whoosh! After refining 100,000 royal grade essence crystals, the aura of the pill puppet suddenly soared into the sky. Early 8th grade human supreme martial artist. The unintentional sense Dantian's cultivation had reached the early 8th grade human supreme martial artist realm. 100,000 royal grade essence crystals should be able to sustain the unconscious pill puppet for half an hour. Ningyu muttered as his gaze shifted to the unconscious Dan Xiao. Honestly speaking, 100,000 royal grade essence crystals to let the unconscious pill puppet persist for half an hour. Ningyu was really a little reluctant. He had obtained a total of 1 million royal grade essence crystals from the cave, and after careful calculation, it could only provide for 5 hours. Poochie! Poochie! While Ningyu was advancing at full speed, somewhere on the battlefield, 2 figures were struck in the chest by the cultivators they were fighting with. Their bodies flew out, and they spat out a mouthful of blood. Dark Emperor, Talisman's Supremacy. These 2 figures were none other than the Dark Emperor and Talisman's Supremacy. At this moment, the 2 of them were in a sorry state. Their clothes were tattered, and their auras were extremely weak. Comparatively, the sapling on the other side was in a much better state. The sapling was fighting 1 against 2, but it was only at a slight disadvantage. At the very least, it wouldn't be defeated in a short period of time. Damn it, I wonder when that brat Ningyu will return. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, the Dark Emperor said coldly, with Ningyu's strength, dealing with these peak 6th grade human supreme martial artists should be a piece of cake. Don't talk so much. Ningyu is dealing with Venerable Gong, and the 7th grade pinnacle human sovereign realm unconscious Danshi were already considered very lucky to have stayed behind to deal with these 6th grade pinnacle human sovereigns. The talisman supremacy was rather rational. She was clear that Ningyu was the true danger. Whether it was Supremacy Gong or the unconscious Dan Shao, both of them were extremely powerful. The slightest carelessness, and they would die without a burial. We can't carry on like this. We have to think of a countermeasure. The Dark Emperor's eyes rolled as he spoke. I know that we have to think of a way, but what can we think of? The talisman supremacy's face was cold. It was so much so that she felt a little regretful. She had left the 100 Flowers Palace to search for a cauldron for the palace lord. She had found the cauldron, but she had fallen into a deeper whirlpool. Don't be distracted. Seeing the talisman supremacy's dazed expression, the Dark Emperor immediately roared. These fellows are all puppets. They won't give any face. Yes, yes. Hearing the Dark Emperor's roar, the talisman supremacy immediately reacted and fought with the peak 6th grade human supreme martial artist. Boom, boom. However, the Dark Emperor and the talisman supremacy were already at the end of their tether. Even with their full strength, they couldn't withstand the attacks of a peak 6th grade human supreme martial artist. In a moment of carelessness, the Dark Emperor and the talisman supremacy were struck by the fists of the peak 6th grade human supreme martial artists, and their bodies were like broken kites as they heavily fell onto the ground. Russell, after pushing the Dark Emperor and the rest back, the 2 peak 6th grade human sovereigns instantly tore through space and appeared before the Dark Emperor and the rest at a terrifying speed. It's over. The Dark Emperor's pupils contracted as he felt despair in his heart. Right now, he had basically lost the qualification to fight with a peak 6th grade human sovereign. At this moment, he could even defeat or kill an ordinary 1st grade human sovereign. Buzz! Suddenly, the situation changed. The space in the distance suddenly split apart. A colossal creature appeared out of thin air. It's over, it's over. We're really done for this time. The Dark Emperor fell into complete despair at the sight of the massive creature in the distance. That's because the massive figure that appeared was the unconscious Dan Shao. Furthermore, the cultivation of the unconscious Dan Shao had reached the initial phase 8th grade human sovereign realm. Even he and the talisman supremacy couldn't deal with 2 peak 6th grade human sovereigns, not to mention the unconscious Dan Shao. Roar! The unconscious Dan Shao roared into the sky as it swiftly moved and appeared above the Dark Emperor. Crack! Crack! What happened next left the Dark Emperor, widened his mouth, and speechless for a long time. That's because the unconscious Dan Shao had stretched out its hands and grabbed onto 2 peak 6th grade human sovereigns, tearing them into 2. Gulp! The sudden change had caused disbelief to appear on the Dark Emperor's face. 2 pinnacle 6th grade sovereign realm human sovereigns were killed so easily. Crack! Crack! Furthermore, after killing the 2 peak 6th grade human sovereigns, the unconscious Dan Shao flew to the side of the sapling and helped the sapling kill the other 2 peak 6th grade human sovereigns. Everything was over in a matter of seconds. The Dark Emperor stretched his right hand out and pointed at the unconscious Dan Shao, stuttering as he spoke. Chapter 1095. 2 flowers bloom. Let me tell you what's going on. At that instant, a calm voice could be heard coming from the rift. Whoosh! Another figure emerged from the void, right after the indifferent words were spoken. The figure was not too old, with a skinny face and a tall figure. Ningyu! The Dark Emperor was slightly dumbfounded as he stared at the familiar figure. Didn't Ningyu go after Venerable Gong? Could it be right? Having that thought, the Dark Emperor immediately shifted his gaze toward the unconscious pill puppet in the air. When he saw the unconscious pill puppet hovering in the air like a statue, the Dark Emperor opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out in the end. The situation was clear. The unconscious pill puppet had been obtained by Ningyu, and now belonged to Ningyu alone. As for Venerable Gong, anyone could guess his fate as long as they weren't idiots. Here, Ningyu took out 2 storage bags and tossed them to the Dark Emperor and the talisman Martial Highness. After a slight thought, Ningyu took out another storage bag and tossed it to the sapling. The Dark Emperor and the others received the storage bags with joy on their faces. 100,000 royal grade origin crystals. Each of them received 100,000 royal grade origin crystals. With so many royal grade origin crystals, the Dark Emperor was confident that he could recover to his peak within a short period of time. Thanks. After receiving the royal grade origin crystals, the talisman Martial Highness nodded at Ningyu to express his gratitude. With so many royal grade origin crystals, he was confident that he could recover to his peak within a short period of time. Ningyu, are we leaving the Pill Cave or staying here? After receiving the royal grade origin crystals, the talisman Martial Highness did not immediately recover. Instead, he frowned and said, "If we stay, we might be able to find a huge amount of resources. If we leave, we can use the unconscious pill puppet to help Ciel on. Let's rest here for half an hour. We'll leave the Pill Cave after that." After a brief hesitation, Ningyu decided to rest first. After all, they were not in peak condition. Even if they left the Pill Cave now, they would not be able to help Ciel on. Rather than causing trouble now, it would be better for him to recuperate for the time being. It wouldn't be too late to go there after he recovered to his peak condition. All right, if not for Ningyu being here, the Dark Emperor would have long gone to recuperate. Now that he heard Ningyu's words, he immediately sat down cross-legged and took out a royal grade origin crystal from his storage bag, tossed it into his mouth, and began refining it. Kacha! In just a few seconds, this royal grade origin crystal was swallowed by the alchemy sovereign. Ka. After that, the Dark Emperor took out a few more royal grade origin crystals and tossed them into his mouth to chew. Whoosh! Although the talisman Martial Venerable was not as arrogant as the Dark Emperor, she was still refining the royal grade origin crystal at an extremely fast speed. Forget it, you guys are all amazing. Upon seeing the Dark Emperor and talisman Martial Supremacy's actions, Ningyu arrived at a relatively quiet area. He reached into his robes with his right hand and took out the triple sacred fruit. After thinking for a while, Ningyu gritted his teeth and threw the Sansheng fruit into his mouth. F***CK, this crystal. As soon as the Sansheng fruit was thrown into his mouth, Ningyu felt a ball of fire burning in his mouth, causing him to suffer unspeakable pain. In fact, Ningyu even had the urge to spit out the Sansheng fruit. However, Ningyu knew very well that the Sansheng fruit was a treasure. Once he swallowed it, he must not spit it out. Otherwise, all his efforts would be in vain. Feeling helpless, Ningyu could only grit his teeth and endure. Drip, drip, drip. Beads of sweat the size of beans dripped from Ningyu's forehead continuously. Ningyu had no time to care about the changes on the surface. He focused his mind into his body and attempted to refine the Sansheng fruit together with his soul power and origin chi. The energy contained within the Sansheng fruit was unusually massive. According to Ningyu's estimation, this amount of energy could at least allow him to advance to a grade 2 human supremacy. Currently, Ningyu's cultivation was only a grade 1 human supremacy. If he could advance to a grade 2 human supremacy in a short period of time, his strength would increase by at least a few folds. By then, Ningyu would be fearless even if he were to face an early grade 7 human supremacy. Spiritual transformation technique. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu threw himself into refining the Sansheng fruit wholeheartedly. He really did not pay attention to the outside world and only focused on refining the Sansheng fruit. The reason why Venerable Gong did not dare to refine the Sansheng fruit was because his physique was weaker and his willpower was not strong enough. Apart from his physique being slightly weaker, Ningyu's willpower was exceptionally strong. Chi. With the help of the spiritual transformation technique, the Sansheng fruit continued to shrink. In Ningyu's sea of consciousness, majestic energy kept surging into his body. It was so much that it was almost out of control. The energy contained within the Sansheng fruit is indeed powerful. If this goes on, I might explode. Ning Yu's eyes darted around as he tried to think of a countermeasure. There was indeed no way for him to digest so much energy. In a few more minutes, exploding would probably be the easiest way for him to die. Phantom armor. At this critical moment, Ning Yu's mind stirred, and he directly took out the welcome armor. The phantom armor was a royal-grade artifact. Every time there was energy, its quality would increase. Previously, the experts of the Phantom Rat clan used the demonic beasts in the magical Beast Mountain range to refine the phantom armor to lower-grade royal grade. Ning Yu was confident that with so much energy this time, he could at least refine the phantom armor to middle grade. Crack! Although he was refining the phantom armor and cultivating at the same time, Ning Yu's cultivation speed did not decrease at all. On the contrary, it was getting faster. Half an hour passed. The Dark Emperor and Venerable Talisman Marshal had already woken up. Among the two of them, the Dark Emperor had recovered to second-grade Supreme Martial Artist, and his strength had reached the peak. Venerable Talisman Martial Artist had recovered to 5th-grade Supreme Martial Artist, and his strength was not much weaker than the Dark Emperor. On the other hand, Ning Yu had his eyes closed, and his right hand kept grabbing at the air. Bang! Not long after, a muffled sound came from Ning Yu's sea of consciousness. The sound was crisp and clear, yet made one feel suffocated. You, the Dark Emperor and Venerable Talisman Martial Artist felt the terrifying aura emanating from Ning Yu, and their mouths were slightly agape. Second-grade Supreme Martial Artist. After more than half an hour of cultivation, Ning Yu's cultivation had taken another step forward, reaching the terrifying second-grade human sovereign realm. Moreover, Ning Yu's second-grade Supreme Martial Artist was a little different from ordinary ones, because he was a peak second-grade Supreme Martial Artist, and his aura was even stronger than a peak 6th-grade Supreme Martial Artist. Phew! After advancing to peak second-grade Supreme Martial Artist, Ning Yu heaved a sigh of relief. He stretched out his right hand and wiped the beads of sweat off his forehead. After more than half an hour, he advanced from 1st-grade Supreme Martial Artist to 2nd-grade Supreme Martial Artist. However, Ning Yu did not show too much joy, because what made him the happiest was the Phantom Armor. At this moment, the Phantom Armor had reached middle-grade Supreme Martial Artist. Although it was only a small increase from lower-grade Supreme Martial Artist to middle-grade Supreme Martial Artist, this increase was extremely useful to Ning Yu. Chapter 1096. A special person, don't make a fuss. Let's leave the pill cave immediately. Retracting the Phantom Armor, Ning Yu controlled the unconscious Dantian into his storage ring before grabbing the Sword of Evil and dashing out. My Dantian is even more powerful now. The Dark Emperor and the Talisman Supremacy exchanged glances and could see the astonishment in each other's eyes. Advancing from a 1st-grade human sovereign to a 2nd-grade human sovereign in half an hour. Just what kind of freak was he? Perhaps describing Ning Yu as a freak was no longer appropriate. Freak. The only word that the Dark Emperor and the Talisman Supremacy could think of was freak. Let's go too. Since Ning Yu had already left, the Dark Emperor and the Talisman Supremacy would not stay behind. The Talisman Supremacy brought Yun Mu and the Dark Emperor with him, as they quickly chased after Ning Yu. Swish, swish, swish. 3 figures were rapidly advancing in the depths of the pill cave. The Dark Emperor, Ning Yu, and the Talisman Supremacy, as well as the Sword of Evil and Yun Mu that they brought with them. Ning Yu, we might encounter the Danzhong army in a few minutes. Should we kill them or leave? The Dark Emperor frowned as they flew. Although the Danzhong army was only a 1st and 2nd-grade human sovereign, they could still unleash terrifying battle prowess when they joined forces. They had 2 choices. The first was to take a detour and avoid the Danzhong army as much as possible. The second was to fight them head-on. After all, the unconscious Danzhong was around, and they had recovered to their peak condition. It was unknown who would live and who would die. Swish! Before Ning Yu could reply, the sapling turned into an afterimage and disappeared. The direction that the sapling went was where the Danzhong army was. Sigh. There's no other way now. We have to kill them, whether we want to or not. The sapling's actions made Ningyu sigh. The sapling was the world tree. If it wanted to devour the Danzhong, there was nothing Ningyu could do to stop it. Buzz. Seeing the sapling sprout out, the law of space could no longer sit still. The law of space had always been in a competitive relationship with the sapling. The sapling had swallowed so many elixir puppets, but it hadn't gotten anything. It must be furious right now. Therefore, the law of space also wanted a piece of the pie. What do we do now? The Dark Emperor was dumbfounded. Why were all of them acting like hooligans? Seeing a pill puppet, they were even more excited than seeing a royal great essence crystal. What should we do? Do you still need me to teach you that? Devouring pills has always been your forte. Ningyu rolled his eyes at the Dark Emperor, then tore through the void and chased after the sapling and the spatial laws. Right now, there was only one strategy, and that was to swallow, swallow, swallow. Before the sapling and the spatial laws completely devoured Danhua, they could devour as much as they could. F***, wait for me. Hearing Ningyu's words, the Dark Emperor almost jumped up. Ningyu was right. Devouring pill puppets was his forte. He was a heaven-devouring dog, known to be able to swallow the heavens, the earth, and the air. If he couldn't even defeat Ningyu, then this title would be too unworthy of his name. You guys devour slowly. Supremacy Talisman Marshal did not want to get involved blindly. He was different from Ningyu and the Dark Emperor. Even if he went to devour the pill puppets, his speed wouldn't be much faster. Rather than that, he might as well heal Yunmu first. When they left the pill cavern later, there would be one less trouble. My eyes. My legs. Everyone, don't panic. We must work together. Their cultivation levels are very low. It's impossible for them to devour all of our pill puppets. Inside the pill cavern, all sorts of curses and roars rose and fell. Regrettably, their cries were all in vain. After Supremacy Gong and Supremacy Fong were killed and the unintentional consciousness pill puppets were obtained by Ningyu, their fates were already sealed. The sapling and the spatial laws were simply two monsters. Their bodies were like a bottomless pit. No matter how many pill puppets they devoured, there was no change. Sapling, you've devoured so many pill puppets. Shouldn't you at least give me a Shenyang pill? Ningyu shouted at the sapling as he devoured the pill puppets. Swoosh! The sapling swayed, as though it was provoking Ningyu. I can't cure you anymore. The sapling's provocative action caused Ningyu to be infuriated. With a thought, he began to control the sapling. If Ningyu's current cultivation was only at the first-grade human supremacy realm, he naturally wouldn't be able to control the sapling. But now that he had advanced to the second-grade human supremacy realm, and with the help of the spatial laws, the sapling was quickly controlled by him. Buzz. After being controlled by Ningyu, the sapling kept swaying, trying to break free from Ningyu's control. However, how would Ningyu give it the chance? Ningyu would never allow it to eat alone. Boom! The arm could never win against the thigh. 30 seconds later, a Shenyang pill appeared on one of the sapling's branches, and the speed at which the Shenyang pill was growing was fast, very fast. In just a minute or two, the Shenyang pill was starting to take shape. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before the first Shenyang pill was fully formed. Swallow, swallow, swallow. The Dark Emperor slaughtered the many pill puppets. Every time he killed a pill puppet, he would devour it as fast as he could. Even though the pill cavern was right, the sapling, the spatial laws, Ningyu, and the Dark Emperor finally devoured all the pill puppets after 2 hours of hard work. No. To be precise, there was still one pill puppet that was not killed. This pill puppet's cultivation was not particularly high, only at the third-grade human supremacy realm. The reason why Ningyu could spare him was because he was very special, so special that Ningyu had no choice but to keep him. I know where all the resource stations of the Easter Expedition Army are. I beg you, let me go. The third-grade human sovereign, Dan Ming, hurriedly knelt on the ground and said, "Furthermore, apart from knowing where the resource station is, I also know an important piece of information. This important information concerns your life and death. Speak. Ningyu crossed his arms in front of his chest and said calmly, "You have to promise to let me go." The third-grade human supremacy gritted his teeth. "You don't have a choice." Ningyu's expression was still the same, except that his face was starting to show anger. All right, I'll speak. For the sake of his life, the third-grade human supremacy could only speak honestly. Initially, the Easter Expedition Army did not intend to attack the humans because it is not the right time yet. However, it seems that there has been a disagreement within the army recently. Some of them have decided to use the Pill Cavern of Donwu College as their base of operations to start a large-scale attack on the humans. Daixia Kingdom is the first country to be affected. When will the attack begin? Ningyu continued with a gloomy expression. Chapter 1097. Leaving safely. One last question. How can I bring you away without the cavern collapsing? After a moment of silence, Ningyu said, "Don't tell me you don't have a way. If you don't, I'll cripple your cultivation, break your legs, and pull out your tendons before leaving you here to fend for yourself." Aye. With every word Ningyu said, the third-grade Mortal Supreme would tremble. In the end, the third-grade Mortal Supreme Dan Chi even fell to the ground. He had no doubt that Ningyu would do such a thing. After all, Ningyu had no direct relationship with him, so he wouldn't care about his life or death. What? If you can say it, then say it. If not, I'll do it. The Dark Emperor was getting impatient. Who knows if you're telling the truth? What if the cavern collapses soon? Wouldn't it be dangerous for them to stay? Therefore, the Dark Emperor unleashed his aura and pressed down on the third-grade Mortal Supreme Dan Chi Puff. Under the pressure of the Dark Emperor's aura, the third-grade Mortal Supreme Dan Chi spat out a mouthful of blood as his body trembled even more violently. I'll say it. If you don't want the cavern to collapse, you have to give up something. Zhang Shun clenched his teeth and said, "Yuan crystals. The more Yuan crystals, the better. I'll bring you to a whirlpool. Throw all the Yuan crystals you have into the whirlpool. When the whirlpool doubles in size, enter it. If everything goes well, the whirlpool will bring us out of the cavern. If everything goes well, what if something goes wrong?" The Dark Emperor said coldly. "Whether something goes wrong depends on how many Yuan crystals you have." Zhang Shun said, "Ningyu, what do we do?" The Dark Emperor turned to look at Ningyu and said, "Can we trust his words? I can believe it. Just now, I paid attention to the changes in his emotions, and I noticed that his emotions have always been in a highly tense state." Waving his hand, Ningyu said, "Bring us to the whirlpool. Remember, don't play any tricks or you'll die a horrible death." I know. I won't play any tricks." Zhang Shun hurriedly nodded. Whoosh! Zhang Shun took the lead, and Ningyu followed closely behind. The Dark Emperor brought the Sword of Evil, while the talisman Martial Sovereign brought Yunmu. They quickly went to find the whirlpool. This pill cavern was not big, but it was not small either. Ningyu and the rest followed behind Zhang Shun. In just 10 minutes, they arrived in front of the whirlpool. There really is a whirlpool. Looking at the whirlpool in front of him, the Dark Emperor opened his mouth and said, "However, this whirlpool is a little small. Even if it doubled in size, it wouldn't be able to fit all of us in. As long as the vortex doubles in size, there will be a powerful suction force coming from inside. At that time, as long as everyone doesn't do anything low, they will be sucked into the vortex," Zhang Shun explained. "Let me try first." Ningyu did not hesitate. He took out a storage bag and threw it into the whirlpool. Chi. As soon as the storage bag was thrown into the whirlpool, it made a sizzling sound. Very soon, the sound disappeared. Gone. Ningyu was a little dumbfounded. One had to know that the number of essence crystals in the storage bag earlier was a total of 10,000 pieces. In other words, 10,000 pieces of royal-grade essence crystals were all devoured by the whirlpool. 1 second. 0. 1 second. Perhaps it didn't even reach 0. 1 second. I want to hear the truth. So many royal-grade essence crystals can only make the whirlpool expand a little. How many royal-grade essence crystals are needed to make it double in size? Ningyu turned to look at Zhang Shun with an ugly expression. At this time, Even if there was something wrong with Ning Yu's head, he could guess that Zhang Shun was playing tricks. To tell you the truth, this whirlpool is indeed a whirlpool that leads to the outside world. Moreover, as long as it doubles in size, we will be able to leave the pill cavern successfully. Zhang Shun laughed out loud and said, "Most of what I said is the truth. There is only one point, and that is the problem of essence crystals. To make the whirlpool double in size, the amount of essence crystals needed is in the millions." Millions! The expressions of Ning Yu and the Dark Emperor were very ugly. Millions of royal-grade essence crystals, just thinking about it made people despair. Dark Emperor, execute your heaven-swallowing hound clan's secret technique and kill it. Memories devour. Now that it came to this, Ning Yu no longer hid anything. He said to the Dark Emperor coldly, "Got it." The Dark Emperor had long found Zhang Shun an eyesore. Now that Zhang Shun was playing tricks, he naturally had to teach Zhang Shun a lesson. The Dark Emperor was the emperor of the heaven-swallowing hound clan. Not only could he devour essence, energy, he could even devour memories. To deal with Zhang Shun, the Dark Emperor was as violent as he could be. A minute later, Zhang Shun was devoured by the Dark Emperor. "How is it?" Ning Yu stared at the Dark Emperor and asked solemnly. "Nothing much. Hurry up and throw Zhang Shun into the whirlpool. A second later, and the cave will completely collapse." The Dark Emperor did not have time to answer Ning Yu's words. He grabbed Zhang Shun's shoulder and threw him into the whirlpool. Ka. A terrifying strangulation force erupted from the whirlpool, mincing Zhang Shun into pieces. Rumble. At the same time, the pill cave started to shake, and this shaking became faster and faster, showing signs of collapsing at any moment. "Let's go, leave the pill cave." The Dark Emperor left this sentence, then tore through the void and was the first to enter the whirlpool. "Let's go." Even the Dark Emperor had entered. Ning Yu's worries were slightly alleviated. He grabbed the sword of evil and entered the whirlpool, disappearing. "Let's go too." With everyone leaving, Supremacy Talisman Marshal would be no different from a fool if she stayed. She tapped Yun Mu's shoulder twice with her right hand, then brought Yun Mu into the whirlpool. Boom! Swish! When Supremacy Talisman Marshal entered the whirlpool suddenly closed and the shaking of the pill cave disappeared completely. Everything returned to normal. Where is this? Why is it so dark? Ning Yu and the others were in an incomparably dark void. There's a light spot ahead. Suddenly, the Dark Emperor pointed into the distance and exclaimed. Everyone's gaze shifted to the area where the light spot was. That place was indeed very bright. Hurry! Initially, Ning Yu wanted to stay for a while more to confirm if the place where the light spot was safe. However, when he turned back and saw the space gradually closing up, he immediately rushed out, using all his strength. Whoosh! Before long, Ning Yu and the others completely rushed out of the space. Die! Ning Yu had just flown out of the space, and before he could observe the situation around him, he heard a loud shout beside his ear. This voice was very domineering, not taking Ning Yu and the others seriously at all. A heavy fist broke through the void and smashed towards Ning Yu's head. Chapter 1098. Consecutive Slaughter. Phantom Armor. It's all up to you. Feeling the terrifying power contained in the fist, Ning Yu clenched his teeth and hurriedly summoned the energy in his consciousness, wrapping it around the Phantom Armor. Bang! A crisp sound rang out. The heavy fist landed heavily on Ning Yu's chest. The immense force sent Ning Yu flying. Crack! Ning Yu's body crashed into a towering tree far away, breaking it in half. Puffed! Fresh blood spurted from his mouth as Ning Yu's expression turned extremely ugly. It's you guys! Staring at the figures in the distance, Ning Yu said in a deep voice, Why are you guys here? Not far away from Ning Yu stood 4 figures. Without a doubt, they were the 4 pinnacle 7th grade Sovereign Realm pellet puppets that he had seen in the cave. I should be the one asking you that. The pellet puppet that had attacked Ning Yu said coldly. This is the second entrance to the Pill Cave. Why did you guys come out from here? Tell me what happened inside. I don't think I need to tell you guys what happened in the pill cave, right? Turning his head, Ningyu was filled with confidence when he saw that the Dark Emperor and the rest had landed safely. 4 pinnacle 7th grade sovereign realm pellet puppets and a sumptuous meal. Ningyu, why are you wasting your breath on them? They're only 7th grade sovereign realm pellet puppets. Hurry up and kill them. We don't have time to waste here. The Dark Emperor seemed a little impatient as he continued. I'm only a step away from 3rd grade sovereign realm. As long as I'm given 2 pellet puppets for me to devour, I'll be able to advance to 3rd grade sovereign realm. The Dark Emperor's words made Ningyu and Venerable Talisman Marshal's faces darken. Even at this point, he was still thinking of devouring. As expected of the Sky Devouring Dog Clan. Come out. Ningyu knew the severity of the situation. With a thought, he controlled the unintentional consciousness pill puppet to leave the storage ring. The Sword of Evil was still in a wooden state. If he wanted to remove the Danteon mark on his forehead, he would have to find that 8th grade initial human supreme and refine it before injecting its energy into the Sword of Evil's body. Apart from this, there was no other way. The Sword of Evil had followed him through thick and thin. How could Ningyu leave him alone? Dong! The enormous, unconscious Dan puppet landed in front of Ningyu. Hiss! The sudden appearance of the Colossus had caused the 4 pinnacle 7th grade sovereign realm pellet puppets to suck in a cold breath. Terrifying. They were only at the peak of the 7th grade human supremacy realm, but the unintentional consciousness Dan puppet in front of them was at the beginning of the 8th grade human supremacy realm. Most importantly, how did this unconscious pill puppet end up in Ningyu's hands? What about Venerable Gong and Venerable Fawn? Where the hell did the 2 of them go? A series of questions appeared in the minds of the 4 puppets. Roar! At this moment, an earth-shattering roar resounded. The unintentional consciousness Dan puppet stomped on the ground and charged out at a shocking speed. Its first target was the pinnacle 7th grade human supreme that had attacked Ningyu. Puff! Before the powerful pill puppet, that pinnacle 7th grade human sovereign couldn't even react in time, and his head was blown apart. Whoosh! The Dark Emperor rushed out the moment the pinnacle 7th grade human supreme Dan puppet died. In the words of the Dark Emperor, such a delicacy shouldn't be wasted. Retreat! Seeing that the situation wasn't good, they immediately retreated. There were also highly intelligent Dan puppets among them. The remaining 3 Dan puppets could sense how terrifying the unintentional consciousness Dan puppet was. If they stayed any longer, they would definitely die. Instead of staying and waiting for death, they might as well leave and find Venerable Emperor Marshal. Venerable Marshal Emperor was an 8th grade human sovereign. Thus, he was able to suppress Cielon in their fight. 3 hours later, Venerable Emperor Marshal defeated Cielon and found a quiet place to start refining the unintentional consciousness Dan puppet. Venerable Emperor Marshal was an early-stage 8th grade human supreme. As long as he refined and devoured Cielon, he could easily advance to the mid-stage 8th grade human supreme. Venerable Emperor Marshal definitely had to grasp such a good opportunity. After him, Ningyu glanced at the Dark Emperor, then grabbed the Sword of Evil and followed closely behind the unintentional consciousness Dan puppet. Releasing a tiger back into the mountains would cause endless trouble in the future. Ningyu understood this logic. To cut the weeds, one had to remove the roots. No matter what, Ningyu had to kill the remaining 3 pinnacle 7th grade human supreme. Go in. After some thought, Ningyu took out a storage bag and threw it into the unintentional consciousness Dan puppet's mouth. Boom! There were a total of 100,000 royal grade essence crystals in the storage bag. With so many essence crystals in its stomach, the unintentional consciousness Dan puppet exploded with a terrifying aura. Another half an hour. Every 100,000 royal grade essence crystals could keep the unintentional consciousness Dan puppet at the 8th grade human supreme for half an hour. Now, Ningyu had 800,000 royal grade essence crystals left. including the 100,000 royal grade essence crystals he just threw into the unintentional consciousness Dan puppet's mouth. It could last for 4.5 hours. Ningyu didn't believe that he couldn't catch up to the 3 pinnacle 7th grade human supreme Dan puppets in 4.5 hours. If he really couldn't catch up, Ningyu might as well hang himself. Hang in there. We'll reach the Venerable Emperor Marshal in 3 minutes. I wonder if the Venerable Emperor Marshal refined that be *TCH. After all, she's also an 8th grade human supreme. Don't worry, the Venerable Emperor Marshal isn't an ordinary 8th grade human supreme. He's very powerful. Even the unintentional consciousness Dan puppet behind him can't pose a threat to him. That being said, I wonder if we could disturb the Venerable Emperor Marshal while he's refining that be *TCH. We have to disturb him even if we can't. Otherwise, we'll all die. The 3 Dan puppets discussed as they ran away. Crack. They didn't run for long before the unintentional consciousness Dan puppets caught up. The unintentional consciousness Dan puppet was extremely ruthless. It raised its arm and hammered the neck of the last puppet. With a crack, the last puppet's eyes rolled back and it fainted. Another one. The Dark Emperor always appeared and disappeared mysteriously. Wherever the Dan puppets were, he would be there. After the unintentional consciousness Dan puppet succeeded, he immediately tore through the void and appeared, devouring the 2nd pinnacle 7th grade Dan puppet. Whoosh! While the Dark Emperor was devouring the Dan puppets, Ningyu and the rest weren't idle. 2 of the 4 Dan puppets died, leaving 2 behind. In Ningyu's heart, he couldn't let any of them go. In the following period of time, it was always Ningyu and the rest chasing from behind, while the 2 Dan puppets ran in front. Oh no! Hurry up and kill them. About 10 minutes later, Ningyu's expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly ordered the unintentional consciousness Dan puppets. This was because Ningyu found an empty space in front of him. There were 2 martial artists sitting in the empty space. Chapter 1099. Barrier. Sovereign Martial Emperor, save us. When the 2 pill puppets saw Sovereign Martial Emperor, they were ecstatic and shouted crazily. Sovereign Martial Emperor didn't seem to hear them. His eyes were still closed, and his palm was half a foot away from Xielan's forehead. Obviously, Sovereign Martial Emperor was absorbing Xielan's yuan qi. Sovereign Martial Emperor, you can't leave us in the lurch. We followed you and fought everywhere. Even if we didn't make any contributions, we still worked hard. Puffed. Sovereign Martial Emperor's appearance made one of the pill puppets reveal a look of despair. However, before the puppet finished speaking, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. Damn it! Seeing that his companion was killed, the other pill puppet instantly understood. Sovereign Martial Emperor didn't care about their lives. In his current state, he could only rely on himself to survive. Cursing, the last pill puppet's figure flashed, and he raised his speed to the limit, quickly rushing towards Sovereign Martial Emperor. You're not going to make a move? I'll force you to make a move. Bang. Sometimes, there was a huge gap between ideals and reality. When the last pill puppet was a few steps away from Sovereign Martial Emperor, his body abruptly stopped, unable to move forward. Barrier. With the Martial Emperor Venerable as the center, a transparent barrier suddenly rose around him. The barrier was several feet wide, and it also enveloped the last pill puppet. Whoosh! No matter what, the last pill puppet was still very satisfied to be able to enter the barrier, because inside, he could at least be protected by Sovereign Martial Emperor, and he wouldn't be killed by the unconscious pill puppets outside. Puffed! In just a few seconds, the last pill puppet regretted it. Sovereign Martial Emperor narrowed his eyes, and a cold light shot out from within. The cold light was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of the last pill puppet. Then, under the terrified eyes of the puppet, it pierced through the center of its forehead. Plop! After spitting out a mouthful of blood, the last pill puppet's mouth opened wide, and his body fell backward. Until the moment before his death, the last pill puppet didn't understand. Why did Sovereign Martial Emperor kill him? Of course, he might have to bring this matter underground to think about it. Ningyu, after casually killing the last Dan Qi, the martial emperor, Venerable, retracted his palm that was hovering above Xielan's head. He took a deep breath and walked toward Ningyu. After a while, the martial emperor Venerable stopped and said, "Do you think you can contend against me just because you control the unconscious pill puppet? To tell you the truth, you're a little naive. My cultivation is at the initial phase 8th grade sovereign realm. Not to mention that I've devoured most of Xielan's energy. What do you have to fight me?" Ningyu didn't answer the martial emperor's question directly. He narrowed his eyes and released his soul power, quietly approaching the transparent barrier. Although the venerable martial emperor said it calmly, Ningyu could still see some clues from his slightly trembling calves. Emperor Martial Venerable wasn't at his peak. Since he was not sure how much combat power the martial Emperor Venerable had left, Ningyu did not want to act rashly for now. When Ningyu's soul power came in contact with the transparent barrier, it was as if something was blocking it, stopping his soul from advancing. Haha, looks like I've overestimated you. You can't even enter the barrier with your soul. Ningyu's actions were completely noticed by the martial Emperor Venerable. The martial emperor smiled. Forget it. Since the heavens are merciful, I'll let you guys live for another 2 hours. 2 hours later, I'll break the barrier. At that time, it will be your time of death. Russell. Finishing his words, the martial emperor Venerable waved his hand and the barrier gradually dimmed. Not long after, the area where the martial emperor Venerable was shrouded in a black mist. She should be injured. Ningyu knitted his brows as he muttered, "What should we do now?" After all, Xielan was from the 100-Flower Palace, and she wasn't killed. So the martial emperor Venerable still wanted to save her. Should we leave now, or should we think of a way to save Xielan? Yinmu had already been treated by the martial emperor Venerable. The two of you, along with the Dark Emperor, retreat far away. I'll think of a way to break the barrier. After a brief pondering, Ningyu waved his hand. The martial emperor Venerable is a pinnacle initial phase 8th grade sovereign to begin with. The moment he devours Xielan, there's a high chance that he'll reach the intermediate phase 8th grade sovereign realm. At that time, we'll all die. Do you need help? The Dark Emperor took a step forth and came before Ningyu. I've devoured several powerful pellet puppets, and I'm only a step away from the 3rd grade sovereign realm. My fighting strength. Ouch. Halfway through his sentence, the Dark Emperor jumped up. Looking closely, it turned out that Ningyu had kicked his butt and sent him flying far away. Scram to the side. With your mediocre skills, what's the difference between staying here and dying? Ningyu glared at the Dark Emperor in annoyance, then turned around and stared at the barrier. Although it was shrouded by the black mist, Ningyu's keen senses could still sense that there were many tiny lights flickering on the barrier. These lights should be the first line of defense. Knitting his brows, Ningyu briefly pondered and tossed the red demon's sword out. Red demon, find a way to devour all the white lights in a region. Ningyu did not let the red demon's sword devour all the white lights, as it would attract the attention of the martial Emperor Venerable. A narrow region would do. Whoosh! After receiving Ningyu's instructions, the red demon sword came to the side of the barrier and carefully devoured the white lights. Sizzle, sizzle. While the red demon sword devoured the white lights, Ningyu had been paying close attention to the situation around the barrier. As long as there was any movement, he would immediately order the red demon sword to stop. As it turned out, Ningyu's worries were superfluous. 20 minutes later, the red demon's sword devoured all the white lights in a region. Unconscious puppet. Once everything was done, Ningyu tossed a storage bag containing 100,000 royal grade essence crystals to the unconscious puppet and controlled it to slowly approach the region where the red demon's sword was. Attack! As soon as the unconscious puppet came to the red demon's sword side, Ningyu secretly ordered, "Roar!" The unconscious Dan Lin roared towards the sky and then used his huge arm to fiercely smash towards the barrier. Crack! Just as Ningyu had guessed. Without the protection of the white lights, the unconscious puppet blasted the barrier open with a punch. Oh no! Inside the barrier, the martial Emperor Venerable was devouring and refining Xiaolon with all his might. Initially, the martial Emperor Venerable thought that with the protection of the barrier, he could sit back and relax until he refined Xiaolon. Chapter 1100. Demon Palm. Ningyu, I underestimated you. At this point, Venerable Martial Emperor knew that he had no choice but to face Ningyu and the unconscious pill puppet. With his right hand behind his back, the Martial Emperor said calmly, "It seems like the battle between you and me is inevitable." Wrong. Ningyu scanned the Martial Emperor Venerable and said coldly, "I'm not the one fighting you. You're the one fighting the unconscious pill puppet." Thud, thud, thud. Ningyu moved his body sideways. In the unintentional awareness, Dan Ho took heavy steps towards the Martial Emperor Venerable. After being replenished with 100,000 royal-grade origin crystals, the unconscious alchemy puppet was now at its peak. Every step it took seemed extremely heavy. "Ningyu, aren't you afraid that I'll kill her?" The Martial Emperor Venerable's figure flickered. His left hand turned into a claw and grabbed Xiaolan's neck. "If unconscious Dan Shi takes another step forward, I will make her head roll on the ground." "Wait." Ningyu raised his right hand and gestured for the puppet to stop. "Ha ha ha. Ningyu, don't I still have something on you?" Venerable Martial Emperor laughed maniacally when he saw Ningyu admitting defeat. "You're wrong again." Ningyu shrugged and continued, "I'm not giving in to you. Actually, I have nothing to do with that woman. In other words, she and I are enemies. She's from the 100-Flower Palace. Kill her if you want. I'll let the puppet attack after you kill her." Ningyu smirked and stood there as if he was watching a show. The problem had suddenly shifted to the Venerable Martial Emperor. Emperor Martial knew very well that it wasn't that Ningyu didn't want to save Xiaolon, but he was forcing himself. Emperor Martial rolled his eyes and tried to think of a countermeasure. Right? Suddenly, the Martial Venerable seemed to have thought of something, and a cold light shot out from his left sleeve. Whoosh! The cold light disappeared in the blink of an eye. The speed of the cold light was indeed very fast, but under Ningyu's powerful perception, it still had nowhere to hide. It should be soul power. Ningyu frowned and became cautious. It was very likely that the Martial Emperor Venerable would be driven to desperation and do something so outrageous. Ningyu thought that as long as Emperor Martial didn't self-destruct, he could accept it. But now, Xiaolon couldn't self-destruct. Once Xiaolon self-destructed, the Martial Emperor Venerable might take advantage of the chaos to escape with a secret technique. "Ningyu, I've suddenly changed my mind. I feel that God is merciful. I won't kill this woman. I'll return her to you now." As he spoke, Martial Emperor pushed Xiaolan's back towards Ningyu. The puppet. There was no way Ningyu would approach Xiaolon like a fool. He separated a bit of soul power and wrapped it around the unconscious Dan puppet's fist, controlling it to approach Xiaolon. As soon as the puppet approached Xiaolon, the soul power around his fist tore through the air and entered Xiaolan's body. It's really soul power. At first, Ningyu suspected that the Martial Emperor Venerable was using soul power, and now it was confirmed that it was indeed soul power. However, although Emperor Martial's cultivation was high, at the early stage of the 8th grade Human Supreme, his soul power was limited. Middle stage of the 7th grade. Emperor Martial's soul power was only at the middle stage of the 7th grade. Ningyu's soul power was also at the level 7 middle stage. With the same soul power, how could an Imperial Martial Venerable be Ningyu's opponent? It only took 1 second for Ningyu to devour the soul power that Emperor Martial left in Xiaolan's body. Not only that, but Ningyu also took the opportunity to break the seal that the Martial Emperor Venerable had left in Xiaolan's body. As soon as Ningyu devoured the soul power, the Martial Emperor Venerable in the distance let out a blood-curdling scream. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Emperor Martial screamed like a madman. He couldn't believe that Ningyu could so easily break the soul power that he spent so much effort to leave in Xielan's body. Moreover, Ningyu even broke the seal that he left in Xielan's body. What kind of freak was he? Or was he a second-grade human supreme? Even the martial Emperor Venerable would not believe that a second-grade human supreme martial artist could achieve this. Even the peerless geniuses of the pill refinement realm couldn't compare to Ningyu when they were in the second-grade human supreme realm. Which old monster are you in disguise? Show yourself. Emperor Marshall said coldly. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Ningyu shrugged and said, even if you're heavily injured, I would still be slightly fearful of you with Xielan by your side if you fought me fair and square. Now that I've dealt with Xielan, how are you going to fight me when you're heavily injured? How did you know that I'm injured? Since he couldn't hide it, Emperor Marshall brought his right hand in front of him. Hiss! Even though Ningyu was mentally prepared, he couldn't help but gasp when he saw Emperor Marshall's right hand. Tragic. To use one word to describe it, it was miserable. To use one word to describe it, it was miserable. Ningyu, I didn't intend to use this move, but you forced me to do it. Emperor Marshall's face was emotionless. He raised his left hand and slashed at his right wrist. Crack! A crisp sound rang in the area. His hand rose and his palm fell. Emperor Marshall's right hand fell to the ground and turned into nothingness. Ah! With a miserable shriek, the martial Emperor Venerable's right hand began to grow at a visible speed. In just a few seconds, the Venerable Emperor Marshall's right hand grew out again. Devil's Palm. Ningyu's heart sank as he stared at the martial Emperor Supremacy's hand that had grown back. The so-called Devil's Palm was a plant that grew in extremely cold places and looked like a palm. It was called the Devil's Palm because it looked similar to a palm. The Devil's Palm had a special characteristic. It would gradually eat away at the host's body until it completely occupied the host. After the host died, the Devil's Palm would find a new host. There had been a total of 2 Devil's Palm incidents in the Mystic Moon continent. These 2 incidents of the Devil's Palm had both happened hundreds of years ago. Every time it happened, it would cause chaos in the Mystic Moon continent. Only the top experts of the continent could calm the situation down. I didn't expect you to know about the Devil's Palm. Chapter 1101. Countermeasure, Venerable Emperor Martial Emperor. I think I have to remind you that a newborn Devil Palm is no different from a baby. It's easier to deceive. As long as there's a little bit of sweetness, it will listen to you. Ningyu's face turned cold as he said in a deep voice, but once the demonic palm grows for a period of time, even if you're an 8th grade human supreme, you can forget about suppressing it. If you want to live now, you only have one choice. That is to chop off the demonic palm and place it in the pill furnace to refine a pill. Are you trying to fool a child? The corners of the martial emperor's lips curled up as he said sinisterly, with a newborn devil's palm, I can kill you with just a thought. As soon as he finished his words, the martial supremacy's body gradually turned blurry. Not good. As soon as the martial emperor's body became illusory, Ningyu knew the seriousness of the problem. He knew very well how terrifying the Devil's Palm was. With the Demon Palm, even if the venerable martial emperor was not at his peak, he could easily defeat him with the Demon Palm. At this point, there was only one way to defeat the venerable Emperor Marshall with the demonic palm, and that was to cure Xielan. Only by relying on Xielan's strength would he have a chance of defeating the martial Emperor Realm Venerable. Otherwise, he would die today. Unconscious Dan Puppet. Find a way to stop Venerable Martial Emperor. At this thought, Ningyu took out all the storage bags in his robes and threw them into the mouth of the unconscious pill puppet. Rumble. At that moment, the Martial Emperor appeared beside Ningyu. He clenched his right fist and punched Ningyu's head. At the critical moment, the pill puppet unleashed its might. It raised its right fist and collided head-on with the Martial Emperor Venerable's right fist. Gotcha! When the 2 fists collided, the martial sovereign and the puppet both took a few steps back. Ningyu, do you think this clumsy idiot can stop me? The martial Emperor Venerable cracked his neck. Then his body became illusory again. Law of space. Hurry up and tell me where Venerable Emperor Marshall is." Seeing the Emperor Marshall disappear for the second time, Ningyu immediately contacted the Law of Space to find out where he was hiding. According to the information sent back by the Law of Space, Ningyu controlled the puppet to stop the Emperor Marshall. Interesting. The Marshall Emperor raised his eyebrows and disappeared for the third time. Boom! But there was not much change. The venerable Marshall Emperor launched a third sneak attack, but the puppet was still able to guess his location. "You play with the unconscious Dan Chi first. I'll come find you later." Ningyu left these words behind, and then flew to the side of the Dark Emperor and the others. 7-9. 1 Emperor 9 Emperor Marshall Ton. Shing Marshall God, Marshall said. To 1. The Marshall Tian is Ton, a Marshall Tian of Tian ided from a devil as of. 6 Tian as Tian. Go to the side. Ningyu glared at the sovereign and said, "Although the Emperor Marshall sovereign's strength has decreased a lot, his right hand has changed into a demonic palm. That's a big problem. If you're unlucky enough to be scratched by the demonic palm, your whole body will rot." Hiss! The Dark Emperor, the talisman Marshall Supremacy, and the others gasped. The demonic palm was so powerful. "Xialan, how much combat power do you have left?" Ignoring the sovereign and Marshall Emperor, Ningyu looked at Xialan and asked, "The puppet won't be able to last long. If I want to defeat the Marshall Emperor Marshall Sovereign, I can only rely on you." "Rely on me?" Xialan had already woken up, but her strength had not recovered to its peak. After all, the Marshall Emperor Marshall Sovereign had devoured so much essence chi. It was already very heaven-defying to be able to recover 40 to 50%. "I still have 50% of my combat power left." Although she did not know what Ningyu was going to do, Xialan still answered honestly. No matter what, her life was saved by Ningyu. Without Ningyu, she would have long been devoured by the Marshall Emperor Marshall Sovereign. 50% of my combat power. Ningyu's brows were tightly furrowed, as though he was having an intense mental struggle. Boom! While Ningyu was still hesitating, the puppet in the distance was already at a complete disadvantage. He believed that in another 10 minutes or so, it would be completely defeated. At that time, no one would have a good time. "If I give you a Xinjiang pill, how long will it take for you to recover to your peak?" The battle was so intense that Ningyu did not have much time to think. He said in a deep voice, "I can provide the Xinjiang pill for you. The condition is that you have to recover to your peak as soon as possible and swear a heavenly oath to never go against me again." Ningyu, that won't do. It's too easy for her to swear a heavenly oath. Why don't you let her relax and leave a wisp of your soul force in her consciousness? The Dark Sovereign had a different opinion about Ningyu's request. Xialan could swear a heavenly oath not to go against Ningyu, but what about him? What if Xialan turned against him and attacked him? Therefore, when dealing with a powerful woman, it was better to be very, very careful. This time, Ningyu did not scold the Dark Sovereign. Instead, he sank his consciousness into his storage ring and plucked a Xinjiang pill from a sapling. "I can promise that I won't go against you anymore, but I can't let go of my heart." Although Xialan was very interested in the Xinjiang pill in Ningyu's hand, she still shook her head. "Can't do it." Ningyu's expression darkened. In reality, Ningyu was more in favor of the Dark Sovereign. "It's true that I can't do it. There are 2 wisps of soul force in my consciousness. One belongs to the Palace Master of the 100 Flowers Palace, and the other belongs to a mysterious expert." Xialan explained, "Your soul force is very weak. As long as you enter my sea of consciousness, you will definitely be discovered. At that time, let alone controlling me, even you yourself might be in danger. Let's not talk about this for now. Swear a heavenly oath not to go against me and my friends from now on." Ningyu waved his hand. "All right, I swear a heavenly oath." Xialan raised her right hand and swore a heavenly oath. Whoosh! Ningyu was not someone who went back on his words. After Xialan swore a heavenly oath, he tossed the Shenyang pill to her. Xiaolan caught the Shenyang pill and popped it into her mouth without hesitation. Ningyu, do you have any more Shenyang pills? I'm only half a step away from reaching the 3rd grade human supreme. The Dark Sovereign moved closer to Ningyu. I still have one last Shenyang pill. It's for the martial emperor and the demonic palm. If you want it, go ahead and take it. Ningyu closed his eyes and said calmly. Air. The Dark Sovereign felt awkward and retreated to the side. The martial emperor and the demonic palm were the key. He was going to reach the 3rd grade human supreme sooner or later anyway, so he didn't mind wasting a second. Whoosh. At this moment, the outcome of the battle was decided. Chapter 1102. Attack. Ningyu, I told you long ago that the mindless Dan Ho is no match for me, but you just didn't believe me. After using the demonic palm to kill the mindless Dan Ho, Emperor Marshall tore through the void and instantly appeared in front of Ningyu and the others. Emperor Marshall raised an eyebrow and said proudly, What else do you have? Use them all, because if you're a few minutes late, you'll become food for the demonic palm. With a gloomy expression, Ningyu turned to look at Xiaolan, who was recovering, and quickly thought of a countermeasure. The mindless Danho had been blown apart, and Xiaolan needed a few minutes to recover. The situation seemed to be completely in favor of Emperor Marshall. 3 minutes. In 3 minutes, the demonic palm will regain its fighting strength, and then Ningyu and the others will die tragically at the hands of the demonic palm. On the surface, Emperor Marshall was the strongest in this area, but he knew that with his current fighting strength, there was no way he could kill Ningyu quickly. If Ningyu wanted to escape, he could only watch helplessly. This was because every time the demonic palm fought, it needed 3 minutes to rest. Only after 3 minutes would it fight again. The battle with the mindless Danho had consumed too much of the demonic palm's energy, causing it to be unable to exert its fighting strength at its peak. Whoosh! The chi in Emperor Marshall's sea of consciousness gushed out and entered the demonic palm along his right arm. The demonic palm seemed to be enjoying it. It controlled Emperor Marshall's right arm to float in the air, constantly devouring the chi that gushed out of Emperor Marshall's sea of consciousness. As the chi devoured increased, the demonic palm became redder and redder. Xiaolan, how long will it take for you to recover? We don't have much time left. Ever since Emperor Marshall came over, Ningyu had been paying attention to the changes in his expression. From indifference at the beginning, to nervousness in the middle, and now, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Every time Emperor Marshall's expression changed, Ningyu knew that the demonic palm was getting closer to the second attack. 3 minutes at most. As Xiaolan refined the Xingyang pills with all her might, she sent a voice transmission to Ningyu. In another 3 minutes, I'll be able to recover to my peak condition. So, no matter what, you have to help me hold off the Martial Emperor's supremacy for 3 minutes. Otherwise, everyone will die. Xiaolan's tone irritated Ningyu. When you were at your peak, how confident were you that you could defeat an Emperor Marshal Venerable with a demonic palm? Ningyu asked calmly. 10%, Xiaolan said solemnly after thinking about it for 2 seconds. F***CK the Dark Abyss Crystal. Ningyu almost cursed it out loud. You have the nerve to say that you're only 10% sure? Don't recover. Just do as I say. Later, you'll... Ningyu felt that there was no need to wait any longer. He had a 30% chance of winning against the Martial Emperor Venerable now, but when Xiaolan recovered to her peak condition, she would only have a 10% chance of winning. There was no need to think to know who was superior. Will this work? After hearing Ningyu's plan, Xiaolan's mouth was slightly agape, her face filled with shock. She had not expected Ningyu to be willing to do something like this. In her opinion, there was no way that Ningyu would win. In other words, not only would he not be able to kill the Martial Emperor Venerable, he would also put himself in danger. Attack! Seeing Xiaolan's stunned expression, Ningyu yelled, pulling her back to reality. At this critical moment, a slight distraction could result in one's body being smashed to pieces. Go for it. Xiaolan decided to suppress the Xingyang pills that she had yet to refine in her body. She then took a step forward and charged at the martial emperor's supremacy at a shocking speed. Xialan knew what this attack meant. It was either succeed or die. Success or failure depended on this. Martial Emperor Venerable, eat my fist. In the blink of an eye, Xialan arrived before the Martial Emperor Venerable. She clenched her right fist and punched at the Martial Emperor Venerable's head. Xialan's punch contained almost all the primordial qi in her sea of consciousness in order to attract the Martial Emperor Venerable's attention. You're courting death. As expected, Xialan's move did attract the Martial Emperor Venerable's attention. With a low growl, the Martial Emperor Venerable swung his right hand through the air, colliding with Xialan's fist. Crack! The two fists collided. A crisp sound rang out. Xialan was like a kite with a broken string, flying backward. Oomph! The Martial Emperor Venerable snorted coldly and chased after her. The Martial Emperor Venerable's plan was simple. Although the demonic palm had yet to recover to its peak, Xialan was still far from it. He would kill Xialan first, then deal with Ningyu. He's still here. The Martial Emperor Venerable was no fool. When he attacked Xialan for the second time, he did not forget to look at Ningyu. When a Martial Emperor Venerate discovered that Ningyu was still standing there foolishly, not knowing how to escape, he felt much less worried. Since Ningyu did not know how to escape, he could kill Ningyu after killing Xialan. Buzz! What the Martial Emperor Venerable did not know was that the Ningyu standing there was only an illusion. The real Ningyu had already torn the void and hidden the void with the Space Law's concealment ability. A little closer, a little closer. In the void, Ningyu kept urging the Space Law to speed up. With every second that passed, Xialan would be in more danger. Ningyu had already witnessed the demonic palm's terrifying strength. Xialan, who only had half of her strength left, was naturally no match for the demonic palm. However, no matter how hard Ningyu urged, the Space Law continued to move forward slowly. The Martial Emperor Venerable was an 8th grade human supreme. His perception was very strong, so he did not dare to mess around with the Space Law. If the Martial Emperor Venerable found out, the consequences would be unimaginable. Whoosh! As Ningyu approached the Martial Emperor Venerable carefully, the Martial Emperor Venerable threw a punch with his right fist again. It landed squarely on Xialan's chest. Xialan coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood from the immense force that came from her chest. Martial Emperor Venerable, I'll take you down with me even if I have to self-destruct. Xialan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his body gradually grew larger. Moreover, Xialan's body was growing at a rapid pace. In just a second, he had doubled in size. At this rate, Xialan would self-destruct in a second at most. Retreat. The Martial Emperor Venerable would not make an unnecessary sacrifice. He stomped the ground and retreated a few meters away. Ha ha ha! Martial Emperor Venerable, you've been tricked. Xialan laughed when she saw the Martial Emperor Venerable retreating. Trick! The Martial Emperor Venerable's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. He quickly used his perception. Isn't it a little too late to use your perception now? Chapter 11:03. Subdue Walla. When the voice sounded, Ningyu quietly appeared next to the Martial Emperor Venerable. You want to kill me? It won't be that easy. As an 8th grade human supreme martial artist, Martial Emperor reacted very quickly. As soon as Ningyu appeared, he raised his right hand and ruthlessly struck at Ningyu's head. The venerable Martial Emperor's most powerful attack was in the demon's palm. It could be said that without the devil's palm, Ningyu could easily kill him. Red Demon's Sword. Looking at the approaching demonic palm, Ningyu injected all his essence energy into the Red Fiend's sword. Then, he stuffed the last Shengyang pill into the Red Fiend's sword. Buzz! The Red Demon sword left Ningyu's hand and gradually enlarged in the Martial Emperor's eyes. Finally, it slashed at the Martial Emperor's right arm. Kacha! Ah! The first sound was the sound of the demonic palm being chopped off. As for the second sound, it was the sound of the Martial Emperor Venerable screaming like a pig being slaughtered. Xiao! The demonic palm broke away from its host. The martial emperor then tore through the void and fled into the distance at an astonishing speed. Xiaolan, you deal with venerable martial emperor and leave him alive. I'll go after the demonic palm. Ningyu knew very well that he couldn't let the devil's palm escape. Otherwise, the great Xia kingdom would fall into a calamity. Therefore, Ningyu had to catch up to the devil's palm no matter what. Whoosh, whoosh. In the dense forest, two figures, one in front and one behind, were extremely fast. However, as time passed, the distance between Ningyu and the demonic palm was getting closer and closer. This demonic palm was a newborn demonic palm. It had just fought with Xiaolan, so the energy within its body had already been depleted. If there was no more energy to replenish it, its speed would become slower and slower until it completely stopped. Half an hour later, after half an hour of chasing, Ningyu finally caught up to the demon's palm beside a river. Thump! The demonic palm jumped directly into the river. Going into the water, Ningyu did not follow the demon palm into the water. He stopped on the river and smiled. The devil's palm was driven to desperation. The demonic palm wouldn't last long underwater. According to Ningyu's estimation, the devil's palm would leave the water in 10 minutes at most. As expected, Ningyu's guess was right. 10 minutes later, the demonic palm leaped out of the water and rushed into the air. Come here. Ningyu crossed his arms in front of his chest and stared at the devil's palm with interest. Sha. The devil's palm hesitated for a moment in the air before obediently landing in front of Ningyu. Right now, the devil's palm's intelligence was equivalent to that of a child. At this time, the devil's palm was the easiest to deceive. Originally, Ningyu wanted to kill the devil's palm, but on second thought, Ningyu felt that killing it wasn't a good idea. If there was a newborn devil's hand, there would be an adult devil's hand. Who knows, the devil's palm incident might be happening in other places in the Sky Devil region. Ningyu wanted to completely control the devil's palm in case of emergency. Open your mind and let me leave a drop of blood essence and soul force in your body. Ningyu unleashed his soul force and locked onto the demonic palm as he said in a deep voice. Ningyu didn't dare to be careless when facing the devil's palm. This thing looked gentle on the surface, but it was extremely ferocious. A little carelessness and one would fall into its trap. Swoosh! The devil's palm waved in the air and then completely opened its mind. Ningyu flicked his finger and a drop of blood flew out from his finger and landed on the top of the devil's palm's head. Swallow it, Ningyu ordered. Although it was unwilling for survival, the devil's palm still swallowed the blood essence into its body. It's a trap. At this time, the soul force that Ningyu had attached to the blood essence came into play. Ningyu already knew that the devil's palm was very cunning. Giving up without a fight was completely illogical. That was why Ningyu had separated out a bit of soul force and hid it in the blood essence to enter the devil's palm's body. Later, if the devil's palm dared to play tricks, he would let it taste pain. Cough, cough, very good. Seems like you know what to do. Now I will send my soul force into your body. After coughing twice, Ningyu waved both of his hands. His soul force gushed out and made an impulse to enter the devil's palm's body. Buzz still too young. Seeing the soul force above Ningyu's head, the devil's palm couldn't help but tremble in excitement. Luckily, it's a newborn devil's palm. If it was an adult devil's palm, it might not be able to return today. Shaking his head and throwing away the thoughts in his mind, Ningyu slowly controlled his soul force to approach the devil's palm. Every time Ningyu's soul force moved forward, the devil's palm would become a bit more excited. In the end, the devil's palm even jumped in excitement. This is the time. Ningyu seized this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and immediately triggered the blood essence in the devil's palm, releasing the soul force inside it. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The pain coming from its body caused the devil's palm to jump up and down in pain. If you want to live, you only have one choice. That is to completely let go of your mind and let my soul force take over the control of your body. Ningyu said coldly. Once the control of the body was taken away, It meant that one's life would be in someone else's hands. The devil's palm was very clear about this. It strongly objected, not wanting to be controlled by Ningyu. You have no other choice. Ningyu continued, in 3 seconds, if you don't give up resisting, then you'll face a dead end. Ningyu did not want to talk nonsense with the devil's palm. He still had a lot of things to do and did not have time to waste here. The mark on the Sword of Evil's forehead still required the martial emperor's primordial chi to dissolve. If Xiaolon failed to capture the martial emperor alive and allowed the martial emperor to escape or self-destruct, the consequences would not be something that Ningyu could bear. After Ningyu gave the ultimatum, the devil's palm only held on for 2 seconds before giving up. Whoosh! Controlling the devil's palm was a matter of individual strength. Ningyu used a full 10 minutes to completely control the devil's palm. In the end, Ningyu even sat on the ground, paralyzed. His current feeling could only be described with one word: tired. His forehead was covered in beads of sweat, and even his clothes were soaked. Although he was tired, Ningyu did not have time to rest here. He hurriedly wrapped his primordial chi around his body and burned it to dry his clothes. Then, Ningyu forcibly tore through the void and rushed towards Xiaolan's location. Rumble. When Ningyu rushed back at full speed, Xiaolan encountered a new problem. Let's talk. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. You are from the Corpsine sect, and I am Dan Shi. We have a common enemy. Chapter 1104. A storm rises again. Haha. You're a strange person. You don't have your right hand anymore, but you're still pretending to raise it above your head. Amongst the 3 silhouettes, a green-clothed middle-aged man lightly smiled. No matter what, you're still an 8th-grade mortal sovereign. Why are you in such dire straits? Sigh, it's a long story. It's all because... The martial emperor sighed softly when he heard the green-clad man's words and began to explain. However, he was only halfway through his explanation when his chest was hit by the green-clothed man's fist, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Venerable Emperor Marshall's already weak body became even weaker. You're a Dan puppet, an 8th-grade human supreme. The green-clothed man swung his fist and said, as long as we devour and refine you, our strength will definitely improve a little. That's right. This is the first time I've seen an 8th-grade human supreme Dan puppet in my life. The flat-top man nodded and said, most importantly, this 8th-grade human supreme Dan puppet is in his weakest state. We don't even need to use our full strength to kill him. Cut the crap. Since we've seen a Dan puppet here, it means there's a pill cave nearby. Let's kill this Dan puppet and see if we can find a pill cave. The 3rd person from the Corpsine sect was an old man. His cultivation was also the highest among them. The green-clothed man and flat-top man were both early 7th-grade human sovereigns. Only the old man was an early 8th-grade human supreme. Moreover, the old man had another identity. He was the person in charge of the Corpse sect in the Great Xia Kingdom. You can't kill me. I know something important. Seeing the green-clothed man and flat-top man walking towards him, Venerable Emperor Marshall hurriedly shouted, there's an expert hiding within several meters, and I was injured by that expert. Expert? The green-clothed man stopped and frowned. Venerable Emperor Marshall continued, that expert's name is Ningyu, a 2nd-grade human supreme. Ha! The green-clothed man originally wanted to hear Venerable Emperor Marshall's explanation, but when he heard the words 2nd-grade human supreme, he immediately became furious. A 2nd-grade human sovereign was actually able to injure you. An 8th-grade human sovereign? Are you King kidding me? The green-robed man was furious. Without saying a word, he slapped the martial emperor Venerable repeatedly, causing his cheeks to swell up. The green-robed man attacked very heavily. Almost every time he attacked, one of the martial emperor Venerable's teeth would fall. In the end, Venerable martial emperor's mouth was full of blood. He was in a sorry state. Xiaolan, you're also an 8th-grade human supreme. Do you have any way to hold him back? The Dark Emperor said with a grim expression. The 3 cultivators of the Corpsine sect were all very powerful. Although the Dark Emperor knew that Xiaolon was not a match for them, he still wanted to ask. There's no other way. Unless I'm done cultivating the medicinal powers of the Xinjiang pill within my body. Shaking her head, Xiaolon said, As for me, I'll need at least 10 minutes to refine the medicinal effects of the Xinjiang pill in my body. Do you think that we'll be able to stay safe for another 10 minutes? As long as Venerable Martial Emperor is killed, we won't be far from death. It would be great if Ningyu came back, the Dark Emperor said solemnly. Come back. You better hope that Ningyu doesn't come back. With Ningyu's strength, he'll only be sending himself to his death if he comes back. Xiaolon glanced at the Dark Emperor and split a portion of her perception to pay close attention to Venerable Martial Emperor's situation. Her consciousness began to sink into her body to refine the remaining medicinal effects of the Xinjiang pill. Xiaolon's actions made the Dark Emperor and the Talisman Martial Emperor feel despair. One wave had yet to subside, and another wave had arisen. They had just dealt with Venerable Martial Emperor, but who would have thought that 3 more people from the Corpsine sect would come? The Talisman Martial Emperor knew that Ningyu and the Dark Emperor had an irreconcilable hatred with the Corpsine sect. If the cultivators of the Corpsine sect knew that they were related to Ningyu, the consequences would be unimaginable. Bang! 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 In the distance, the green-robed man grabbed Venerable Martial Emperor's left hand and swung him left and right in the air. In the end, the green-robed man loosened his grip, and Venerable Martial Emperor flew into the distance like a gust of wind. Crack! The tree that was as thick as a person's waist was broken by Venerable Martial Emperor. Someone's coming. As soon as Venerable Martial Emperor broke the tree, the old man raised his brows and said indifferently, Buzz. As expected, when the old man's voice sounded, the space next to Venerable Martial Emperor suddenly split open and a figure appeared. Ningyu. The cultivator that appeared next to Venerable Martial Emperor was Ningyu. You. Looking at Ningyu, who suddenly appeared, Venerable Martial Emperor's mouth was wide open and his face was filled with fear. Poof! Venerable Martial Emperor's voice came to an abrupt halt, because Ningyu was holding the red demon sword and had pierced the Martial Emperor Venerable's chest. Gulp! Looking down at the red flying sword in his chest, Venerable Martial Emperor swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Then his eyes rolled back and he died on the spot. Whoosh! After Venerable Martial Emperor died, his body quickly withered and turned into a piece of human skin 3 seconds later. Whoosh! Ningyu shook off Venerable Martial Emperor and moved quickly to the side of the Sword of Evil. The red demon sword was stuck to the Sword of Evil's back, and traces of primordial chi began to flow into the Sword of Evil's body through the red demon sword. As the primordial chi continued to flow, the mark on the Sword of Evil's forehead became weaker and weaker. 10 seconds later, the mark on the Sword of Evil's forehead completely disappeared. Boom! As soon as the mark disappeared, a terrifying aura surged out from the Sword of Evil's body and soared into the sky. Hiss! The 3 experts from the Corpsine sect sucked in a breath of cold air when they felt the aura being released by the Sword Saint. An early stage 8 human supreme. The Sword of Evil was also an early stage 8 human supreme. The 3 experts of the Corpse sect had ugly expressions on their faces. If they had known this would happen, they would have killed the Sword of Evil just now. But it was obviously too late to think about it now. You guys are from the Corpse sect. After breaking the Dantian mark on the Sword of Evil's forehead, Ningyu shifted his gaze to the green-clothed man and the old man. An early stage 8 human supreme from the Corpse sect. It should be delicious to swallow. Ha ha, if I'm not wrong, you're the Ningyu who caused chaos in the Great Xia country's Corpse sect, right? What young hero. The old man laughed and said, Let me introduce myself. I'm the Flying Elephant Venerable of the Corpse sect. I think we can become friends. I'm very sorry, but it's impossible for us to become friends, Ningyu said indifferently. I'll kill every member of the Corpse sect I see. Brat, you're courting death. The green-clothed man stomped the ground and charged at Ningyu at an astonishing speed. From the green-clothed man's point of view, Ningyu was only a second-stage human supreme, while he was an early-stage 7 human supreme. There was simply no comparison between the two. Chapter 1105. Killing the Green-Robed Man, an initial 7th-grade human supreme? Ningyu's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the green-clothed man who was approaching him. Since advancing to 2nd-grade human supreme, Ningyu had never fought against a 7th-grade human supreme. The green-robed man was just about to test it out. Furthermore, Ningyu had just subdued the devil's palm not long ago, so he could test its power now. Kid, I won't say anything if you're arrogant in front of others, because I didn't see it. But if you're arrogant in front of me, you won't be so lucky. The green-clothed man seemed to have a well-thought-out plan. As he charged towards Ningyu, he gloomily said, "Today next year will be the anniversary of your death. Sorry, I might have to disappoint you. This day next year will be very good. It's more suitable to be your death anniversary." Ningyu shrugged and waved the red demon's sword in his hand. In an instant, several sword rays shot out towards the green-robed man. Child's play. The green-robed man clearly didn't care about the sword rays. He casually brushed them aside and appeared in front of Ningyu in the blink of an eye. A fist filled with terrifying yuan qi smashed towards Ningyu's head. The green-robed man's fist was extremely powerful. When the green-robed man was still a peak 6th-grade human supreme, he had used this sneak attack to kill an initial 7th-grade human supreme. Now that he had advanced to initial 7th-grade human supreme, how could Ningyu defend against this sneak attack? Therefore, in the green-robed man's eyes, Ningyu would definitely die. What? Dreams were plentiful, but reality was harsh. The green-robed man's fist went straight through Ningyu's head. Shadow retreat. The green-robed man reacted almost instantly. He hurriedly tore open the void and tried to retreat. The fact that Ningyu could avoid his senses and hide meant that Ningyu's control over space far surpassed his. Under this premise, if Ningyu had a powerful trump card, he would die a tragic death. Don't you think it's too late to retreat now? Ningyu's voice slowly rang in the green-clothed man's ears, acting all mysterious. Since he couldn't retreat, the green-robed man simply stopped in midair and said coldly, "Open your eyes wider in your next life. There are some people you cannot afford to offend." When Ningyu said this, his body suddenly appeared in front of the green-robed man. Puff! The red demon's sword stabbed out in a perfectly straight line, right where the green-robed man's heart was. The green-robed man's fate was no different from that of the martial emperor Venerable. Both of them were reduced to a pile of flesh. Not bad at all. The venerable flying elephant of the corpse sect witnessed the green-clothed man being killed. After the green-clothed man was killed, he clapped his hands and said, "You can kill an initial phase 7th-grade sovereign with your cultivation at 2nd-grade sovereign. Even the corpse sect, there aren't many geniuses like you." What a pity, what a pity. The venerable flying elephant shook his head and said, "I originally wanted to spare your life, but it's a pity that you're carrying the life of someone from the corpse sect. So I had no choice but to kill you." "Old man, have you lost your mind?" Ningyu opened his mouth and stared at the venerable flying elephant. "The Sword of Evil is also an 8th-grade sovereign. Your opponent is him. So how are you going to kill me?" Ningyu wasn't worried in the slightest. That's because the Sword of Evil's cultivation had directly recovered to initial phase 8th-grade sovereign after the Danxiang mark on his forehead was removed. Although he had just recovered and his strength wasn't too stable, it wouldn't be a problem for him to obstruct the venerable flying elephant for a short period of time. Ningyu had already found out about Xielan's situation through his conversation with the Dark Emperor. As long as the Sword of Evil could obstruct the venerable flying elephant for 10-odd minutes, everything would be resolved when Xielan recovered. "You're courting death." The venerable flying elephant was the person in charge of the corpse insect in the Great Xia Kingdom. Everyone he came into contact with had always been respectful to him. He was very angry that Ningyu dared to speak to him like this. The flying elephant venerable cursed and stomped his feet on the ground. Then he darted out in an instant. "Sword of Evil, I'll leave this old man to you." Ningyu hurriedly chose to avoid the venerable flying elephant because he knew his own strength. He could use the law of space to kill an initial phase 7th grade sovereign. But against an initial phase 8th grade sovereign, even with the law of space, Ningyu would still die. Where do you think you're going? The venerable flying elephant's target was Ningyu. Seeing that Ningyu had left, he instantly turned around and chased after Ningyu. Your opponent is me. The sword of evil took a step forward and blocked the venerable flying elephant's path. Oof. I'll deal with you first, and then kill Ningyu. The venerable flying elephant coldly snorted and then started fighting with the sword of evil. Ningyu, do you think you're safe and sound after temporarily escaping the venerable flying elephant's pursuit? To tell you the truth, you're too naive. The remaining corpse insect's crew cut man blocked Ningyu's path of retreat and coldly said, I have a few questions. As long as you answer them honestly, I can leave your corpse intact. First, the corpse insect, stop. Ningyu directly interrupted the crew cut man and doubtfully asked, have you lost your mind? Or are you an idiot? The crew cut man doing such a retarded thing made Ningyu doubt his intelligence. Since when could a person's self-confidence be inflated to such an extent? The crew cut man's strength wasn't much stronger than the green-robed man. But Ningyu killed the green-robed man in one move. What gave the crew cut man such confidence? You dare to call me a fool? The crew cut man revealed an angry look and said coldly, although I'm only an early stage 7th grade human supreme, I have a peak stage 7th grade human supreme corpse puppet. As he spoke, the crew cut man flicked his sleeve and suddenly a storage bag flew out. Bang! The storage bag suddenly exploded and a majestic figure appeared in front of Ningyu. A peak stage 7th grade human supreme corpse puppet. Staring at the corpse puppet in front of him, Ningyu slightly frowned and vaguely came up with a countermeasure. Corpse puppet, remember this man's face. No matter where he runs, you must kill him. The crew cut man began to instill a target for the corpse puppet. Swoosh! The crew cut man's action was indeed as stupid as it could be. Ningyu would never miss such a good opportunity. It was the same trick. He used the law of space to hide in the void and suddenly appeared when the crew cut man was unprepared. Die! The sword pierced through the heart of the man with the flat-top haircut. You want to kill me? It's not that easy. The crew cut man was obviously much smarter than the green-robed man. The red demon sword could pierce the green-robed man's heart, but it couldn't pierce the crew cut man's heart. Ningyu, I'm wearing a low-grade royal grade armor. Do you think an ordinary flying sword can pierce it? Chapter 1106. New Corrosive Gas. Ding! The silver-white flying sword pierced Ningyu's heart and made a crisp sound. Hearing that, the crew-cut man raised his brows and asked, What's going on? Haha, I'm sorry. You have a low-grade monarch rank armor, but so do I. Ningyu let out a faint smile and said, If I'm not mistaken, your silver-white flying sword is only a low-grade emperor, right? It's impossible for a low-grade monarch rank flying sword to break through my low-grade monarch rank armor. I don't believe it. Break. The eyes of the flat-top man turned cold. The primordial chi in his sea of consciousness surged out crazily and wrapped around the silver-white flying sword, trying to break Ningyu's armor. Ningyu did not stop him. Instead, he stood where he was and let the flat-top man stab the phantom armor with his flying sword. Ningyu trusted the phantom armor's defense. The man with the flat-top haircut was only holding a low-grade monarch rank flying sword. Even if he injected more vital energy into it, it would be impossible for it to pierce through the phantom armor. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Towards the end, the crew-cut man's expression became uglier. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break through Ningyu's armor. Nothing is impossible. Ningyu shrugged and said indifferently, Just like how you're unable to break open my armor, yet I'm able to break open your armor. You want to break my armor? The flat-top man was stunned at first. Then he said, Dream on. I'm wearing a low-grade monarch rank armor. So unless it's a mid-grade monarch rank flying sword, it's impossible. Gotcha. Before the man with the crew cut could finish his sentence, a cracking sound came from his heart. Sorry to disappoint you. Ningyu held the red demon sword in his hand. With a little force, he pierced through the armor of the man with the crew cut and reached deep into his heart. "You corpse puppet kill." The flat-top man opened his mouth and pointed at Ningyu, then at Dan Zhong in the distance. In the end, he rolled his eyes and fainted on the spot. The flat-top man's ending was no different from the man in green and the martial emperor venerable. After using the red demon's sword to devour the man in green, Ningyu tore open the void and came to the Dark Emperor's side. "Ningyu, why don't you help the Sword of Evil with your combat power? I see that the Sword Evil is having a hard time." Seeing Ningyu walk over, the Dark Emperor pointed at Exalted Sword Devil in the distant battlefield and asked in confusion, "Go, why don't you help him?" Ningyu sourly glared at the Dark Emperor. The Soaring Elephant Venerable is an initial phase 8th grade sovereign. What's the difference between me going there and courting death? You're courting death if you go. I'll die if I go, the Dark Emperor said softly. The Sword of Evil has just recovered to the initial stage 8th grade sovereign. His combat power isn't comparable to the venerable flying elephant. Ningyu stared at Xiaolon and said, "According to my observation, the Sword of Evil can only last for 15 minutes at most. In other words, if you can't recover in the next 10 minutes, everyone will die." Xiaolon did not answer Ningyu's question. Instead, she nodded slightly. 15 minutes was enough for her to recover to her peak state. After all, the Xingyang pill was a top-grade treasure. Without it, she would need at least a few hours to recover to her peak state. With the help of the Xingyang pill, she could recover to her peak state in 15 minutes. Haha, I was wondering how strong you were. So it turns out that you're just a wax figure. Impressive, but useless. At this moment, the venerable flying elephant laughed maniacally. After a few minutes of testing, I realized that you're very weak. It'll be effortless for me to kill you. Now, I'll let you know what terror is. The venerable flying elephant's eyes flashed with a ferocious light. As he waved his hands, the surrounding aura surged towards the venerable flying elephant. Whoosh! So much aura hovered above the venerable flying elephant and the Sword of Evil. It looked like it would pour down at the venerable flying elephant's command. Go! The venerable flying elephant did not disappoint everyone. As he growled, an earth-shattering wave of yuan chi suddenly descended. Sizzle. Following that, the venerable one took out a jade bottle from his pocket, which was filled with a black liquid. Crack! The jade bottle was smashed, and the black liquid made contact with the aura in the air, emitting sizzling sounds. This is the latest corrosive gas developed by the corpse sect. As long as you're contaminated by it, you're destined to die a miserable death. The venerable flying elephant executed a secret technique to seal this space and quickly retreated. Even the venerable flying elephant did not dare to try this new corrosive gas, because even he couldn't resist it. Terror. If there was one word to describe this new corrosive gas, it could only be terror. Fortunately, those old monsters in the sect have developed a sealing formation. Otherwise, if this corrosive gas spreads out, wouldn't I also suffer? The venerable flying elephant had goosebumps all over his body when he thought of the terror of this new corrosive gas. The first batch of 3 peak 8th grade human supremes who researched this gas all died under the corrosive gas. Among the second batch of cultivators who studied the gases, only a 9th grade human supreme being survived. Only when several peak 9th grade human supremes from the 3rd grade human supremes were fully armed and researched did they manage to develop a controllable new corrosive gas. Although it could be controlled, it only meant that it was controlled by a sealing formation. Once the formation was broken, it would be a disaster. A jade bottle and a sealing formation. It seems that those old monsters are not just sitting around waiting to die. They still have some use. Looking at the new corrosive gas approaching the Sword of Evil, the venerable flying elephant raised the corner of his mouth and gloomily said, "Damn it." At his peak, the Sword of Evil was a peak 8th grade human supremes. Although he had never seen this new corrosive gas, his keen senses could still detect its terror. With a thought, the sword of evil hurriedly released the Yuan Qi in his body and formed a Yuan Qi shield in front of him. Sizzle. When the new corrosive gas came into contact with the sword of evil's Yuan Qi shield, it made sizzling sounds and continuously corroded the shield. At this rate of corrosion, it would take less than 15 minutes for the protective shield to be completely breached. At that time, the sword of evil would be completely exposed to the new corrosive gas. How could the sword of evil withstand the new corrosive gas that even in 9th grade human supremes couldn't resist? Ningyu, it's your turn now. The sword of evil had been sealed together with the new corrosive gas, so the venerable flying elephant's attention had shifted to Ningyu. This woman seems to be an expert from the 100 Flowers Palace. Chapter 1107. Palm Attack. Venerable Flying Elephant. There's no enmity between the Flower Palace and the Corpse Sect. Aren't you afraid that the Palace Master will come to your Corpse Sect to kill us? The talisman Venerable knew that Xiaolan hadn't recovered to her peak state, so she couldn't be disturbed at this moment. Otherwise, all their efforts would be in vain. Haha, even if your Flower Palace sends out all your forces, our Corpse Sect won't be afraid. The Venerable Flying Elephant smiled and continued. Furthermore, isn't it easy for me to kill you guys? As long as all of you die, who will know that I killed you? Don't be too happy. I've already sent a message back to the Flower Palace. If we don't return to the Flower Palace in 3 days, the Palace Master will send people to attack the Corpse Sect. The talisman Venerable lied, and no one could tell that he was lying. No matter what you say today, you won't be able to change your fate of death. Since you want to protect her, then I'll start with you. Swish. Following that, the flying elephant Venerable 1 stomped on the ground and dashed forward. Not good. The talisman Venerable's face drastically changed when he saw the venerable flying elephant charging towards him. He immediately retreated. The venerable flying elephant was an 8th grade sovereign, while she was only a 5th grade sovereign. There was a huge gap between their cultivation and strength. Under this condition, he might not be able to escape even if he tried his best. Not escape, only death awaited him. Attack! Ningyu's face was grave as he slashed out several sword rays towards the venerable flying elephant with the red demonic sword in his hand. Although he knew that he wasn't the venerable flying elephant's opponent, every minute counted. As long as he could stall until Xiaolan recovered, the problem would be solved. Boom! However, the venerable flying elephant was indeed powerful. Ningyu blasted out several sword lights, but they didn't even get close to venerable flying elephant's body before they all dissipated. The venerable flying elephant had also arrived before the venerable flying elephant. His fist brought along a violent gale as it slammed against the venerable flying elephant's body. The massive force had caused the talisman Venerable to fall onto ground. His aura had instantly dropped from the pinnacle 5th grade sovereign realm to the 1st grade sovereign realm. Furthermore, Talisman Supremacy's aura was still rapidly declining. According to this situation, it was only a matter of time before the Talisman Martial Supremacy's aura fell to the freezing point. She was hit by our Corpse Sect's unique fist technique. She only has 3 days to live. The flying elephant Venerable 1 curled his lips and remarked, I initially wanted to use you as a furnace too, but it looks like it's such a pity. But it's okay. The venerable flying elephant's expression changed very quickly. He raised his eyebrows and said, an injured 8th grade human supreme and a 3rd grade human supreme. 2 cauldrons are enough for me to cultivate. TSK, dual cultivation cauldrons. Just thinking about it makes my blood boil. As for this damn dog, no, I should call him the purple gold heaven-devouring dog. I'll bring him back to the Corpse Sect and have a high-rank alchemist refine him into a heaven-devouring pill. As long as I take the heaven-devouring pill, I'll have the ability to devour everything. In your dreams, the Dark Emperor roared towards the sky before his body suddenly expanded and revealed his true form. His massive body floated in the air with a pair of purplish golden wings on his back. Don't be rash. Ningyu let out a low roar as he controlled the pinnacle 7th grade sovereign corpse puppet to fight the venerable flying elephant. The sword of evil was getting more and more dangerous, and Ningyu was thinking of countermeasures. He needed to stall the venerable flying elephant on one side and save the sword of evil on the other. Ningyu had never felt such pressure before. I have to say that you're really foolish and naive to use our corpse puppet to deal with me. The corner of the venerable flying elephant's lips rose as a cold ray of light shot out from his sleeve. Whoosh! The cold ray of light was extremely fast, and when it came in contact with the corpse puppet, it suddenly exploded. Rumble! The shockwave from the explosion shattered the peak 7th grade mortal Sovereign Dan puppet into pieces, scattering them all over the ground. What? Ningyu and the others' faces instantly turned gloomy when they saw the corpse puppet being killed. The current situation was extremely dangerous. Even a powerful corpse puppet was killed in one move. How many trump cards did the venerable flying elephant have? I have to save the sword of evil. Ningyu rolled his eyes as he quickly thought of countermeasures. Oh, right. Suddenly, Ningyu's mind moved, and he immediately communicated with the demonic palm. Can you save the sword of evil and buzz? The demonic palm seemed to have been waiting for Ningyu's words. As soon as Ningyu's voice was heard, the demonic palm transmitted its excitement. Could it be that the demonic palm has a restraining effect on the corrosive gas developed by the corpse sect? Originally, Ningyu wanted to communicate with the sapling. However, the sapling had swallowed too many Dan puppets in the pill cave, causing it to fall into a deep sleep again. This time, the sapling was different from the previous times. As it slept, it produced Shenyang pills. In just a few hours, the sapling had already produced 2 to 3 Shenyang pills. If you can save the sword of evil, I will reward you with a Shenyang pill. In order to make the demonic palm use its full strength, Ningyu even used the Shenyang pill as bait. Swoosh! It turned out that using the Shenyang pill as bait was indeed a very correct decision. Hearing Ningyu's words, the demonic palm instantly sprang out from Ningyu's body and arrived beside the sword of evil in the blink of an eye. Facing the new corrosive gas, the demonic palm was not afraid at all. A terrifying, devouring force emerged from its body and began to devour the new corrosive gas. The venerable flying elephant was very sensitive. As soon as the demonic palm devoured the new corrosive gas, he reacted. Demonic palm. The venerable flying elephant had heard of the demonic palm. The venerable flying elephant also knew how terrifying the demonic palm was. No, it's a newborn demonic palm. After discovering the true state of the demonic palm, the venerable flying elephant revealed a look of relief. Fortunately, it was a newborn demonic palm. If it was an adult demonic palm, he would have died here today. If I capture this newborn demonic palm and bring it back, I believe those crazy researchers in the sect will be very excited. The venerable flying elephant smirked and temporarily gave up on attacking Ningyu and the rest. Instead, he turned to deal with the demonic palm. The demonic palm had a restraining effect on the new corrosive gas. If he allowed it to devour for a while longer, the new corrosive gas would probably disappear completely. At that time, the sword of evil would also be free to deal with him. Therefore, he had to stop the demonic palm. Roar! Seeing the venerable flying elephant's actions, the Dark Emperor roared into the sky. A terrifying sound wave blasted towards the venerable flying elephant. Swoosh! Ningyu also waved the red demon sword repeatedly. Several sword rays appeared and blasted towards the venerable flying elephant from all directions. Get lost! The venerable flying elephant would not change his mind once he decided on something. He waved his hands continuously, and several palm prints were separated. Chapter 1108. Fighting the enemy. I'll let you live for a while longer. I'll come back to deal with you once I'm done with the demonic palm. The flying elephant venerable left these cold words and disappeared with a leap. Chi! The speed of an early-stage 8th grade human supreme was very fast. The moment he disappeared, the flying elephant venerable appeared beside the demonic palm. "Hurry up and stop, or I'll make sure you die without a burial." The flying elephant venerable didn't dare to get too close to the demonic palm. After all, the demonic palm was devouring the new corrosive gas. With the strength of his body, once he came into contact with the new corrosive gas, there was no doubt that he would die. Buzz! The demonic palm waved at the flying elephant venerable as a response. Then it started devouring the new corrosive gas again. At this rate, all the corrosive gas would be devoured by the demonic palm in a minute. By then, the sword of evil would be able to break the formation. "I have to think of a way." The flying elephant venerable was thinking of a solution. No matter how much he calculated, he didn't expect Ningyu to have the devil's palm on him. The worst part was that the demonic palm could restrain the new corrosive gas. This was awkward. Everything was going according to plan, and he would be the biggest winner in the end. Now, everything had changed, and he was in a passive position. Crack! While the flying elephant venerable was thinking, the situation changed. An extremely terrifying, devouring power erupted from the devil's palm, and within 3 seconds, all the new corrosive gas was swallowed up. Without the restriction of the new corrosive gas, the sword of evil directly broke the formation, and his aura soared into the sky. Hiss! Feeling the terrifying aura from the sword of evil, the flying elephant venerable couldn't help but gasp, even though he was mentally prepared. Early stage 8th grade human supreme. The sword of evil's strength had improved again, from early stage 8th grade human supreme to early stage 8th grade human supreme. He was even one step away from early stage 8th grade human supreme. In other words, the sword of evil's strength was no weaker than his. "We must kill Xiaolan and capture Ningyu alive." The venerable flying elephant was not a stupid person. He was well aware of the current situation. The sword of evil wasn't any weaker than him. Without the restriction of the new corrosive gas, he might even lose in a one-on-one battle. If Xiaolan joined the fray, it would be difficult for him to even escape. Under such circumstances, he could only think of a way to kill Xiaolan, or at least capture Ningyu alive. At that time, the sword of evil and the others would have to hold back for fear of harming the innocent, and he would be able to escape. Xiao! The venerable flying elephant immediately tore open the void and charged towards Xiaolan. Dark Emperor, take Xiaolan and the talisman supremacy and leave this area first. Ningyu has the law of space on him, so he can detect venerable flying elephant's position at any time. As soon as venerable flying elephant entered the void, Ningyu shouted, "Don't come back until I contact you." Sword of evil, attack from the west. Rumble. The sword of evil had been suppressing his anger for a long time. If it weren't for Ningyu, he would have been corroded into air by the new corrosive gas. Now that he had an opportunity, he naturally wouldn't let it go. He used all his strength to attack the direction Ningyu had indicated. The huge attack landed in the void, causing the entire space to tremble. Damn it! Helpless, venerable flying elephant appeared from the void and hovered in the air. He said coldly, "Sword of evil, do you really want to fight to the death with me? Fight to the death? Hee, you're not qualified." The sword of evil laughed sinisterly. "Whether I'm qualified or not, I'll only know after I try." Since he couldn't capture Ningyu, venerable flying elephant decided to fight the sword of evil with all his strength. Since Xiaolan couldn't recover to her peak state in a short time, he could fight while thinking of a way to escape. Since venerable flying elephant's mind wasn't on the battle with the sword of evil, he was clearly at a disadvantage this time. Although there's a difference in strength between venerable flying elephant and the sword of evil, it's almost impossible for the sword of evil to kill venerable flying elephant. As an 8th grade human supreme of the Corpse Een sect, Ningyu knew that venerable flying elephant definitely had a trump card. The reason why he didn't use it now was probably because he was looking for an opportunity. In other words, venerable flying elephant didn't have the confidence to kill the sword of evil, so he didn't dare to act rashly. Buzz! 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 The demonic palm returned to Ningyu and kept jumping. Here, Ningyu had promised the demonic palm a Shenyang pill, so he definitely wouldn't go back on his word. He took out a Shenyang pill and threw it to the demonic palm. The fist-sized Shenyang pill was devoured by the demonic palm in no time. Boom! The demonic palm swallowed a Shenyang pill and doubled in size. Holy sh**t. The transformation of the demonic palm caused Ningyu's mouth to gape as disbelief filled his face. If he knew that a Shenyang pill could help the demonic palm grow out of its nascent stage, he would have given it to the demonic palm a long time ago. If the demonic palm's strength was equivalent to an initial 7th grade human supreme, then the current strength was comparable to a pinnacle 7th grade human supreme. Furthermore, after devouring a Shenyang pill, the demonic palm's strength had reached the peak of his current stage. Go and help the Sword of Evil. Ningyu definitely wouldn't let the demonic palm, with the strength of an initial 7th grade human supreme, fight against the venerable flying elephant. But now that the demonic palm's strength had reached the pinnacle 7th grade human supreme, he could already exchange blows with the venerable flying elephant. Buzz. Having tasted the sweetness of the Shenyang pill, the demonic palm hovered above Ningyu's head and didn't make a move immediately. I'll give you a Shenyang pill. The demonic palm's actions had Ningyu cursing uncontrollably. However, he still replied, one Shenyang pill. If you can help the Sword of Evil kill the venerable flying elephant, I'll give you another Shenyang pill. Sure. Before Ningyu could finish his sentence, the demonic palm tore through the void and disappeared. Gulp! The demonic palm's swift movements had Ningyu stunned. The allure of the Shenyang pill to the demonic palm was indeed immense. Ningyu couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. To begin with, there was the Dark Emperor who was coveting the Shenyang pills. And now there was the demonic palm. With these two fellas that devoured things without blinking, it wouldn't be enough no matter how many Shenyang pills he had. Forget it. The most important thing now is to kill the venerable flying elephant. We'll talk about the rest later. Shaking his head, Ningyu tried his best to calm himself down. Just then, the outcome of the battle in midair was decided. With the Sword of Evil and the demonic palm working together, the venerable flying elephant spat out a mouthful of fresh blood in no time. You guys forced me to do this. Chapter 1109. Something happened. As soon as the flying elephant venerable finished speaking, he opened his mouth wide and spat out another mouthful of blood. Who is it? The venerable's expression changed drastically as he released his perception and berated. I'm the woman you've always wanted to be your cauldron, the elder of the 100 Flowers Palace, Xiaolon. An illusory voice sounded from all directions. Finally, Xiaolon tore through the void and landed not far away from the venerable, standing next to Ningyu. You've recovered to your peak state? Sensing Xiaolon's aura, Ningyu's mouth was slightly agape with disbelief. Given Xiaolon's mental state, there was no way she could recover so quickly. Could it be that Xiaolon had some sort of healing medicine on her? I've just recovered to my peak state. Xiaolon's expression was emotionless as she replied. In the end, Xiaolon opened her mouth again and mouthed the truth to Ningyu. I see. Hearing Xiaolon's mouthing, Ningyu took a deep breath and his expression turned solemn. The reason why Xiaolon could recover so quickly was due to the help of the two strands of soul force in her consciousness. Xiaolon had mentioned a long time ago that there were two strands of soul force in her consciousness. The mysterious expert, the 100 Flowers Palace Lord. With the help of the mysterious expert and the 100 Flowers Palace Lord, Xiaolon was able to refine the Shenyang pills so quickly and recover to her peak state. It was also because of this that Ningyu's identity was exposed and noticed by the mysterious expert and the 100 Flowers Palace Lord. The mission that the two of them gave Xiaolon was to bring Ningyu back to the 100 Flowers Palace at all costs. If necessary, the two of them could switch control of Xiaolon's body to bring Ningyu back and obtain the source of the Shenyang pills. Just as Ningyu was about to reply to Xialan, after understanding the situation, Xialan spat out a mouthful of blood, and her appearance seemed to have changed. I've said it before. You guys forced me to do this. The sword of evil and the devil's palm were enough to make him suffer. Now that Xialan was here, the venerable elephant decided to escape. The venerable one took out a scroll from his pocket and said, "This is an ancient scroll. I didn't want to use it because you'll be killed if you use it. Since you are too arrogant, I will send you to hell." Venerable flying elephant flicked his wrist and threw out the ancient scroll. Their targets were Xialan and Ningyu. Courting death. Xialan's expression was cold. Her body suddenly became illusory. Not good. The venerable flying elephant was very sensitive. As soon as Xialan disappeared, he sensed that something was amiss and hurriedly tore the void to escape. Nevertheless, it was clearly too late for the flying elephant venerable one to escape at this time. Xialan quickly appeared beside him and threw a punch, which landed right on his heart. Bang! Xialan's punch was so powerful that it pierced through the venerable flying elephant's heart. Why you, your strength? Why? Until his death, the venerable flying elephant could not understand why Xialan suddenly possessed such a powerful strength. Whoosh! After killing the venerable flying elephant with a single move, Xialan grabbed the ancient scroll that had yet to explode and tore the rift open with her hands, stuffing it into the rift. With a swipe of her hand, the rift closed once again. Rumble. As soon as the spatial rift closed up, the void in the area began to tremble. The shaking lasted for half an hour before it stopped intermittently. Ningyu's mouth was slightly open, and he was very scared. If Xialan had not stuffed the ancient scroll into the rift at the crucial moment, the consequences would be unimaginable. With his strength, there was no way for him to resist the intensity of the spatial tremors just now. Luckily, he managed to resolve it with Xialan's help. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. When everything disappeared, the Dark Emperor, the Talisman Martial Highness, and the others flew over from afar. Your Ningyu? Xialan's actions left the Dark Emperor, the Talisman Martial Highness, and the others dumbfounded. You don't know who Ningyu is? Are you kidding me? It was understandable that the others did not know who Ningyu was. After all, they had never met before, but Xialan pretended not to know who Ningyu was? Who would believe that? Xialan, I said. The Dark Emperor moved toward Ningyu. Shut up. Ningyu turned around and glared at the Dark Emperor before nodding at Xialan. I'm Ningyu. May I know who you are? Very well. Heroes are born young. You don't need to know who I am. What you need to do now is to return to the 100 Flowers Palace with me. Xialan's tone was indifferent, without any hint of emotion. I still have some matters to attend to in the Great Xia Kingdom. Can I return to the 100 Flowers Palace after I'm done? Not long ago, Ningyu learned that the Eastern Expedition Army from the Pill Cavern was going to use Danwu College's Pill Cavern as a stronghold to attack the Great Xia Kingdom. Ningyu had to think of a way to stop this matter no matter what. Also, he had to resolve the matter of the 9 Cauldrons Divine Pavilion as soon as possible. Otherwise, Profound Sky City's Ningyu might be threatened, and the Danwu Academy might also be threatened. No, you have to return to the 100 Flowers Palace as soon as possible. Xialan's tone was unquestionable. You have no other choice in this matter. Can't you make an exception? Ningyu still wanted to fight for it. After all, if he left the Great Xia Kingdom, Profound Heaven City and Danwu College would definitely be finished. If you speak any more nonsense, I'm going to make a move. Xialan changed her tone and said coldly. Dual personality? The conversation between Ningyu and Xialan had been heard by the Talisman Venerable and the rest. It was especially so for the Talisman Venerable, who had a dumbfounded expression as he said with doubt. The first personality is anything like the Palace Lord. The second personality like, I got it. The Talisman Venerable wasn't a fool. He clearly remembered that Xialan mentioned that there were 2 strands of soul force in her sea of consciousness. One belonged to the Palace Lord, and the other belonged to the mysterious expert. Gulp. After figuring out the reason, The talisman venerable looked at Xiaolon with a different gaze. Xiaolon was an 8th grade sovereign to begin with. Now that the palace lord and the mysterious expert had taken control of her body, didn't that mean that they were going to die? The palace lord and the mysterious expert needed Ningyu, not them. To prevent this secret from being leaked, they would definitely be abandoned. Are you going to commit suicide, or do you want me to do it myself? As expected, Xiaolan's tone was cold. If you commit suicide, you can avoid a lot of pain. If I make a move, you will know what cruelty is. Palace Lord, we're from the 100 Flowers Palace. Could it be that you have the heart to kill us? The talisman venerable knew that Xiaolan's body was controlled by the palace lord and the mysterious expert. Right now, she had placed all her hopes on the palace lord. I can only apologize to you guys. I will remember your contributions to the 100 Flowers Palace. Chapter 11:10. Enter the Sea of Consciousness. Palace Master, your target is Ningyu. You just have to bring him back to the Flower Palace. Why kill me and Yunmu as well? The talisman supremacy still wanted to fight for it. Noisy, Xiaolan's tone of voice changed again. It became cold and sinister. Moreover, as soon as she finished speaking, Xiaolan rose from the ground and charged towards the talisman supremacy at a terrifying speed. Xiaolan was originally very close to the talisman supremacy. Now that she attacked at full speed, she quickly arrived before the talisman supremacy. Bang! Xiaolan clenched her right hand into a fist and fiercely smashed it onto the talisman supremacy's chest. This punch was extremely powerful. With the strength of the talisman supremacy's body, he couldn't withstand it at all. Crack! His body flew out and collided with a towering tree, directly breaking it in half. The talisman supremacy spat out a mouthful of fresh blood, and his aura that wasn't strong in the first place dropped once more to the freezing point. Aunt Yun, seeing the talisman supremacy being blasted back, Yunmu hurriedly came before her and helped her up. Ningyu, I'll give you one last chance. Return to the Flower Palace with me, or I'll kill all of them. After her attack succeeded, Xiaolan stopped. Her gaze first looked at Ningyu, then swept past the sword of evil and the others, and she said coldly, If you cooperate with me, I promise to only cripple their cultivation and memories. I'll give them a chance to live. If you cripple their cultivation and memories here, how will they survive? Ningyu's expression was extremely unsightly. Xiaolan's words clearly showed that she didn't want to leave anyone alive. If it's really impossible, I can only fight with my life on the line. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu secretly decided that as long as Xiaolan didn't relent, he would bring out the strength of his soul force and fight with the 2 strands of soul force in Xiaolan's Sea of Consciousness. As the saying goes, a bicycle can turn into a motorcycle. If he didn't fight, the sword of evil and the others wouldn't have a chance to live. Sword Evil Venerable, you'll have to follow my instructions later. In order to increase his chances of success, Ningyu quietly sent a mental message to the Sword of Evil. Good, very good. The corner of Xiaolan's mouth curled up into an arc as she said in a sinister tone, Ningyu, the fact that you have such thoughts proves that you are indeed the cauldron we're looking for. Since you want to resist, we will give you the chance. Whoosh! As she spoke, Xiaolan stood in place, her eyes becoming empty. If you can withstand our soul power attack, then we'll let you live. An illusory voice entered Ningyu's ears. Ningyu's face was gloomy. He didn't know what Xiaolan was planning. Sword of Evil, go. Although he couldn't see through Xiaolan, his plan had already been exposed. He had to act now. Success or failure depended on this. Buzz, buzz. Hearing Ningyu's order, the Sword of Evil's soul power gushed out and entered Xiaolan's sea of knowledge together with Ningyu's soul power. As soon as his soul power entered Xiaolan's sea of knowledge, Ningyu sucked in a breath of cold air. Cold. If he had to use one word to describe it, it would be cold. If he had to use one word to describe it, it would be very cold. One has a level 7 middle stage soul power, and the other has a level 7 peak stage soul power. At this time, two light balls appeared in front of Ningyu and the Sword of Evil. One was a black light ball, and the other was a white light ball. The black light ball was the mysterious expert, and the white light ball was the palace master of the Flower Palace. Both of their soul power were at level 8 early stage soul power. However, according to Ningyu's guess, this soul power was only a little bit of the mysterious experts and the palace master's soul power. Their cultivation had long surpassed the human venerable realm, so how could their soul power only be at level 8 early stage soul power? Ningyu, each of us will give you a chance. We will stand still and let you devour us one by one, the mysterious expert said. Whether you can devour us and take control of Xielan's body, it all depends on your ability. Are you really going to stand still and let me devour you? Ningyu frowned and asked doubtfully. To be honest, Ningyu didn't really believe such a good thing. Don't believe them. They just want to devour your soul power and take control of your body. Suddenly, a blue light ball appeared in Xielan's sea of knowledge. Obviously, the blue light ball was Xielan's soul power. The reason why Xielan was able to break free from the mysterious expert and the palatial palace mistress oppression was mainly because of Ningyu's arrival. The mysterious expert and the palatial palace mistress were so excited that they wanted to devour Ningyu's soul force that they neglected her. Otherwise, Xielan could forget about breaking free for the rest of her life. Xielan, you're a member of the Flower Palace, but now you're helping an outsider. The palace master said in a deep voice, since you're so ignorant, I can only send you to hell. Swoosh! As she spoke, the palace master transformed into an afterimage that charged swiftly towards Xielan. Xielan's soul power was the same as the Sword of Evil's peak stage 7 early stage soul power. It wouldn't be good for the palace master's level 8 early stage soul power. Sword of Evil, go help Xielan. Ningyu knew that it was time to work together. Otherwise, everyone would die a horrible death. Hiss! Hiss! With the help of the Sword of Evil, Xielan wasn't at a disadvantage in the first exchange with the palace master. She only suffered some light injuries. Good, very good. The palatial mistress of the Centauria Palace said coldly, Xielan, do you think you can go against me just because you've found help? To tell you the truth, you're too naive. I'll let you see how I became the palace master of the Flower Palace. After shouting, the palatial mistress's body turned illusory and disappeared in an instant. A concealment technique. Xielan's expression changed drastically when she saw the palace master vanish. She wasn't able to see through the palace master's concealment technique at all. In other words, it would be extremely easy for the palace master to kill her now. On your left. Right when Xielan was feeling despair, Ningyu's voice suddenly resounded in her ears. Bang! At this moment of life and death, Xielan couldn't care less. She launched an attack with all her might, and her target was the left. Just like Xielan, the Sword of Evil had received guidance from Ningyu. He also used all his strength to launch an attack to the left. Two terrifying attacks were launched at the same time. Then, a scream that sounded like a pig being slaughtered sounded in Xielan's mind. Damn it! The palace master was forced to reveal her true form. It was a beautiful face. However, it was filled with viciousness. Buzz. Then, the mysterious expert also revealed his true form. It was a middle-aged man. Then, Ningyu, the Sword of Evil, and Xielan returned to their original forms. However, their bodies had shrunk by several times. Chapter 1111. Swoosh! Swoosh! Seeing the palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace and the mysterious expert reveal their true forms, the sword supremacy in Xielan's figures flashed and arrived beside Ningyu. The mysterious expert's soul power was at the early stage of the 8th rank. The Sword of Evil in Xielan's soul power was only at the peak of the 7th rank. Meanwhile, Ningyu's soul power was only at the middle stage of the 7th rank. No matter how they looked at it, it was impossible for Ningyu and the Sword of Evil to win. If they continued to fight, they might even be annihilated. Palace Master, it seems like you're not that strong. The mysterious expert smiled. I can't even deal with two people at the peak of the 7th rank. It's embarrassing for me to share Xielan's body with you. Shut up. Do it yourself if you can, the palace master said fiercely. Although she didn't know how the sword of evil and the others had detected her, she knew that she couldn't fight against the two of them in Xielan's sea of consciousness. If she insisted on fighting to the death, she would definitely be heavily injured. If she wanted to win today's battle, she had to team up with the mysterious expert and take on one of them each. Both her and the mysterious expert's soul power was at the early stage of the 8th rank. In a one-on-one fight, the sword of evil and Xielan wouldn't be their match. The palace master thought so, but she didn't say it out loud. Her tone was cold as she said, "If you can kill them, I'll give up my control over Ningyu and give him to you." What a joke. The mysterious expert wasn't stupid. The palace master clearly wanted to go against him. If he acted rashly now, he would be no different from a fool. Why don't we do this instead? I'll deal with Sword Nefarious, and you deal with Xielan. Whoever kills Xielan first will be able to control Ningyu for an extra day, the mysterious expert said calmly. Deal. Controlling Ningyu for another day was very beneficial to her cultivation. Palatial Lady Centauria naturally wouldn't reject this agreement. Can I say something? Ningyu had been quietly listening to their conversation. When the palace master and the mysterious expert finished speaking, Ningyu raised his right hand and said indifferently, "You guys are discussing how to kill the sword of evil in Xielan and how to control me for one more day. Did you ask us?" Ask you. The palatial mistress and the mysterious expert were stunned at the same time. Then they said in unison, "There's nothing to say to trash. Go." After that, the palace master charged at Xielan, while the mysterious expert charged at the sword of evil. Rumble. A great battle broke out in Xielan's Sea of Knowledge. In a one-on-one fight, the sword of evil and company would definitely be no match for Palatial Lord Centauria and company. Pucci. The sword of evil and Xielan were both defeated after just 3 or 4 moves. Peak rank, 7 soul power. The mysterious expert stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. If I devour you, I'll be able to replenish the soul power I've been using. You want to devour me? Not so easy. The sword of evil wasn't a pushover. Although he was defeated by the mysterious expert in a few moves, it was all part of his and Ningyu's plan. In reality, the space rule had already quietly appeared behind the sword of evil and was hidden. As soon as the mysterious expert got close to the sword of evil, the space rule would immediately attack to deal with the mysterious expert. In a head-on fight, the space rule was no match for the mysterious expert. After all, the mysterious expert's soul power had reached the early stage rank, 8. However, if it was a sneak attack, the space rule and the sword of evil could still pose a threat to the mysterious expert. Sword of evil, keep your eyes open in your next life. There are some people that you can't afford to offend. Once you offend them, only death awaits you. The mysterious expert moved quickly and arrived before the sword of evil in the blink of an eye. But you don't have to worry. After I devour your soul power, I'll devour your body as well. Ha ha. Ah. Extreme joy begets sorrow, and sweetness begets bitterness. This was the best way to describe the mysterious expert. Before the mysterious expert's maniacal laughter died down, he opened his mouth and let out a hysterical scream. Swish! A cold light streaked across the sky and directly entered the mysterious expert's mind. Oh! The mysterious expert stopped on the spot and hugged his head with both hands as he screamed like a pig being butchered. What's going on? The sudden change caused the palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace's expression to change drastically. She hurriedly shifted her gaze to the mysterious expert. Buzz. Unfortunately, the mysterious expert only screamed for a while before he turned into nothingness and disappeared. Hiss. Seeing the disappearance of the mysterious expert, the palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace couldn't help sucking in a cold breath. Her strength was around the same level as the mysterious expert, so she felt a lingering fear when the mysterious expert disappeared for no reason. Russell. The palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace had sharp eyes and saw a strand of violet light in the area where the mysterious expert disappeared. Law of space. The palace master coldly said, Ningyu, how can you guys possess the law of space? That's impossible. It was no wonder that the palace master of the Hundred Flowers Palace didn't believe it. Even in the Hundred Flowers Palace, there was only a small strand of the law of space. But that strand of law of space was something that no one in the Hundred Flowers Palace could control. Ningyu is only a second-grade sovereign, so how could he control the law of space? That's right, it's the law of space. Ningyu retracted the law of space and floated above his head as he continued. Anyone that knows that I possess the law of space only has two choices. Submit to me or die. Although Ningyu's words were casual, it was like thunder in Xielan's ears. Anyone that knew that Ningyu possessed the law of space had to die. Didn't that mean that even she had to die? Ha ha ha. After a brief moment of shock, the palace master of the Hundred Flowers Palace burst into laughter. The mysterious expert was killed by the law of space because of his carelessness. Your law of space is still weak. As long as I'm a little more careful, it won't be able to do anything to me. You're smart, but sometimes you're too smart for your own good. Ningyu shrugged. It's true that the law of space can't kill you, but with Xielan and the sword of evil working together and the law of space pointing to your location, how are you going to escape? Crack! The palace master of the Hundred Flowers Palace clenched her fists with a gloomy expression. Ningyu was right. She hadn't expected this. If Ningyu really did that, she wouldn't be able to escape today. If it came down to it, she could only abandon this soul force. Are you thinking of abandoning this soul force? Ningyu seemed to be a roundworm in the palace master's stomach. He knew everything that the palace master was thinking. Let me remind you not to be so stupid. I have a secret technique that allows me to attack your body from afar with so much soul force, reducing your strength by at least 50%. Chapter 11-12. Unresolved. The palatial lord's expression turned ugly when she heard Ningyu's words. Nonsense. As the palatial lord of the Hundred Flowers Palace, I've never heard of such a secret technique. Although that was what the palatial lord said, she was secretly being cautious. There's a type of person in this world that likes to put themselves in a trap. If they haven't seen it, they think it doesn't exist. Sigh, how sad. Ningyu curled his lips and said, The soul attraction technique is a soul attack technique that specializes in bombarding the target's body from a distance. In ancient times, some almighty beings used this soul attack technique to kill people from a distance without leaving a trace. Soul guidance. The palatial lord's expression changed drastically when she heard that, and her heart sank to the bottom. As the palatial lord of the Hundred Flowers Palace, she could often enter the Hundred Flowers Palace's treasury. In the treasure pavilion, she was fortunate enough to have seen an ancient book, and that ancient book briefly mentioned the soul attraction technique. The soul guidance technique was extremely domineering. As long as one grasped a portion of a cultivator's soul power, they could attack the body from afar and kill people without leaving a trace. Luckily, you've heard of the soul guidance technique. Ningyu continued, We can capture you first and use your soul power to attack your body. I know that you're enemies with that mysterious expert. Once your earth body is injured, Ningyu didn't continue, but the palatial lord knew very well that she was indeed enemies with the mysterious expert. Furthermore, they kept each other in check, and the difference in strength wasn't too great. If either side's strength dropped drastically, the consequences would be unimaginable. Don't worry, I won't kill you. Instead, I'll help you. Ningyu felt that it might backfire if he pushed her too far. He was just saying the soul guidance technique. After all, with his current mental state, he couldn't use it at all. Help me? How are you going to help me? The palatial lord said calmly. As long as you do as I say, I'll teach you the soul guidance technique in 3 months. Ningyu stated a condition that palatial lord Centauria had no choice but to accept. Soul guidance was a soul-attacking spell that palatial lord Centauria dreamed of learning. Unfortunately, the treasure pavilion of the Flower Palace only recorded how formidable the soul guidance technique was, and it didn't record the method to cultivate it. Once I obtain the cultivation method of the soul guidance technique, then dealing with the mysterious expert will be a piece of cake. The palatial mistress thought to herself. She had been entangled with the mysterious expert for more than a decade. During these years, the palatial mistress of the 100 Flowers Palace had been constantly thinking of killing the mysterious expert. Unfortunately, the mysterious expert's strength was too formidable, and it was formidable to the point that she could only rely on the forbidden area of the Flower Palace to trap the mysterious expert. Although the seal of the Forbidden Land was very powerful, after such a long time, its suppression on the mysterious powerhouse was getting weaker and weaker. According to the palace mistress of the 100 Flowers Palace, the mysterious expert would break free from the forbidden area in another year at most. At that time, it would be the moment of their Flower Palace's destruction. "What do you want from me?" The palace master spoke in a low voice when she thought up to this point. "Help me deal with a powerful cultivator." Ningyu explained, "I want to head to the pill cave of Danwu College and find a way to seal the pill puppet before a large number of pill puppets come out. What you have to do is to help me deal with the 8th grade sovereign that might come out of the pill cave." "That's not a problem. I'll do my best," the palatial mistress said. After that, she looked at Xielan and continued, "If necessary, I will take back control of Xielan's body." "No problem." Ningyu shrugged his shoulders before his silhouette flashed, and he left Xielan's consciousness. Seeing that Ningyu had left, the Sword of Evil had also followed closely and disappeared. "Xielan, you've really found a good helper." The palatial mistress glared at Xielan before her silhouette turned illusory and concealed herself. "Russell." Xielan abruptly opened her eyes, and she was dumbfounded. What happened in her sea of consciousness just now was like a dream. She couldn't catch it, nor could she understand it. Xielan glanced at Ningyu and Venerable Sword Evil on the other side, and her opinion gradually changed. Ningyu wasn't as simple as a second-grade sovereign realm cultivator. A second-grade sovereign that grasped the law of space could make the Sword of Evil listen to him. Sometimes, Xielan even felt that Ningyu was the reincarnation of an old monster. Xielan's guess was right. Ningyu was the reincarnation of a heavenly sovereign. However, aside from Ningyu, no one else knew about it. This was the greatest secret of Ningyu. As for the law of space and the storage ring, he could give them up when necessary. However, he couldn't let anyone know about his reincarnation. Even the people closest to him couldn't be told. Ningyu, the palace mistress, and the mysterious expert have been dealt with. Seeing Ningyu fly out from Xielan's consciousness, Venerable Talisman Marshal opened his mouth and hesitated. Beside him, Yinmu's face was also filled with shock. She was well aware of the strength of the palace mistress and the mysterious expert. How could Ningyu deal with the two of them in such a short period of time? Even if it was just their soul force, it wasn't realistic. Follow me to Profound Sky City. Ningyu didn't want to answer Venerable Talisman Marshal's question. After storing the demonic palm into his storage ring, Ningyu's silhouette flashed as he flew towards Profound Sky City. Since Ningyu didn't want to talk about it, it wasn't convenient for Venerable Talisman Marshal and Yunmu to ask. They could only follow behind Ningyu and rush towards Profound Sky City. "Russell! Russell!" A few silhouettes appeared outside the city gate of Profound Sky City. Those few silhouettes were Ningyu and the rest. The area they were originally at wasn't too far away from Profound Sky City. After flying at full speed for a period of time, they finally arrived at Profound Sky City in the evening. "Ningyu, aren't we going to the capital? Why are we stopping here?" The Dark Emperor was puzzled. "Before we go to the capital, we have to settle the matter in Profound Sky City." Ningyu took a deep breath and strode into Profound Sky City. Matter in Profound Sky City? The Dark Emperor frowned slightly, feeling a little confused. What else could happen in Profound Sky City? Before they left Profound Sky City the previous time, they had already killed all the experts who went against the Ning family. Coupled with the terrifying strength they displayed, the Dark Emperor didn't believe that anyone would dare to behave atrociously in Profound Sky City. F*CK, dark crystal. However, when the Dark Emperor arrived at the main entrance of the Ning family, he was completely dumbfounded and cursed. That was because there were some things that wouldn't happen if you didn't believe it. For example, an earth-shattering battle was taking place in the Ning family's martial arts field right now. Fortunately, the Earth Shaker, the metal-devouring demon lion, and the eight-legged centipede had stayed in the Ning family. Otherwise, the Ning family wouldn't have been able to drag it out until they returned. Chapter 11:13. Speak. Where is Ningyu? Where is Ningyu? Where is Ningyu? On the stage, a black-robed elder said in a cold tone, I gave you a chance, but you didn't know how to cherish it. Since that's the case, I'll have to be ruthless. The black-robed elder swept his gaze across the Ningyu cultivators and said coldly, Every 10 seconds, I'll kill a cultivator from the Ning family until Ningyu appears. Tui. As soon as the black-robed elder finished speaking, Earthshaker spat and said angrily, As long as I'm here, don't even think about killing a single cultivator from a Ning family. Haha, I admit that I'm no match for you one-on-one, but we have 3 peak 6th grade human supremes. In the entire Ning family, you're the only one who has reached the 6th grade human supremacy realm. The black-robed elder wasn't angered by Earthshaker's words. Instead, he smiled faintly and said, 1 against 3, even if you're a demonic beast, only death awaits you. How will we know if we don't try? Earthshaker's face darkened as his aura continued to climb, reaching its peak in a short period of time. Go. The black-robed elder and the other 2 peak 6th grade human supremes exchanged glances before charging forward. Swish, swish, swish. 3 experts charged at Earthshaker from 3 different directions. Under the threat of the other experts, the 8-legged centipede and the metal-devouring demon lion could only stay put and not make any rash moves. Roar! Earthshaker roared into the sky and immediately started fighting with the 3 peak 6th grade human supremes. Comparatively speaking, Earthshaker was much stronger. Even 1 against 3, he wasn't at a disadvantage and could even put up a fight. However, as time passed, Earthshaker's aura grew weaker and weaker. In the end, he was even losing ground. Not long ago, Earthshaker had just gone through a huge battle and was exhausted. It wasn't easy for him to last this long in 1 against 3. Bang, bang, bang. A few minutes later, the Earthshaker finally could not hold on any longer and was hit by 3 consecutive punches. Rumble. The huge body fell heavily on the martial arts arena. Earthshaker panted heavily, his face showing a look of despair. Earthshaker, the second elder, is missing him out. I can bring you back to show respect to him. The elder in black's lips curled as he spoke. Humph. The third elder also lacks him out. In my opinion, the Earthshaker should belong to the third elder, snorted another square-faced 6th grade human supreme. Fourth elder has just made a breakthrough in his cultivation. This 6th grade human supreme Earthshaker should belong to 4th elder. The third was a 6th grade human sovereign. Although he looked young, his cultivation was similar to the black-robed old man. They were both peak 6th grade human sovereigns. All of you, stop quarreling. 3 pinnacle 6th grade human sovereigns, leave them for this emperor to devour. At that moment, a faint voice rang out in the air above the Ning family's martial arts arena. Whoosh! Hearing this, all the warriors of the Ning family stood up, their faces filled with excitement. Ningyu, it's Ningyu. That's right, that voice belongs to Ningyu. It's good that he's back. We're saved. Ningyu can easily kill a 7th grade human supreme, let alone a few 6th grade human supreme. The entire martial arts arena of the Ning family became noisy. From despair at the beginning to hope now. Everyone had experienced a lot. At that moment, they felt the joy of being reborn. You're finally here. The Earthshaker raised his head to look at Ningyu and murmured, I thought you weren't coming. Haha, Earthshaker, you've been with me through life and death for so long. How could I leave you alone? Smiling at the Earthshaker, Ningyu said, Leave this matter to me. Be careful. They're from the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion. The Earthshaker nodded. The Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion again. Ning Yu's face instantly darkened. I didn't go looking for you, but you guys came to find trouble with me again and again. If a lion doesn't show its might, you think I'm a sick cat? You're Ning Yu? Before Ning Yu could speak, the black-robed elder said, Since you know we're from the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion, why haven't you surrendered yet? Don't worry, the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion has always valued geniuses. As long as you follow us back to the headquarters, we won't do anything to you, the square-faced sixth-grade human supreme said. I'm the first-generation genius of the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion. My name is Shueshan. Before you follow us back to the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion headquarters, I want to spar with you. Shueshan took a step forward and released the aura of a peak 6th grade human supreme towards Ning Yu. Peak 6th grade human supreme. Feeling the aura from Shueshan's body, Ning Yu's eyes narrowed. You're not qualified to spar with me. Ha ha ha. Shueshan threw his head back and laughed. Then he changed the topic and said coldly, In the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion, my strength can be ranked in the top 10. You actually say that I'm not qualified to spar with you? What a joke. This is the biggest joke I've ever heard in my life. Poochie. Before Shueshan's arrogant words could finish, his body was sent flying several feet away and heavily fell to the ground. Blood spurted out of his mouth, and Shueshan's face revealed an extremely cold expression. Shameful. Just a moment ago, he boasted that he was the first-generation genius of the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion. But now, he was actually defeated by Ning Yu with a single punch. He had lost all his face. Ning Yu, you're finished. No one in this world can save you. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Shueshan fiercely said, In the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion, no one dares to sneak attack me like this. You're the first to do so in broad daylight. Poochie. Sometimes, people had to believe in reality. Before Shueshan's last word fell, he once again spat out a large mouthful of blood. Who? Shueshan clearly remembered that Ning Yu was standing in the same place without moving. Don't bother looking. It's your grandfather. Space surged, and the Dark Emperor appeared beside Shueshan. I'm the best at beating someone when they're down. The Dark Emperor raised his tail and said in disdain, Even I feel ashamed for you. You're a peak grade 6 supreme being, while Ning Yu is only a grade 2 supreme being. You actually couldn't even block a single move from Ning Yu. You're simply too stupid. Poochie. Shueshan was already gritting his teeth in anger. Now that he heard the Dark Emperor's mocking words, he once again spat out a large mouthful of blood. TSK, TSK, TSK. Do you have a lot of blood? You've spat out a total of 3 mouthfuls of blood, and your face is still red. The Dark Emperor smacked his lips and said in a strange tone, Is it because you often eat certain things that cause you to look like a woman? Or is it because there are always a few days a month that you're already used to? Shueshan went crazy with anger. The Dark Emperor had insulted him over and over again. He simply couldn't take it anymore. Chapter 11:14. Easy defeat. Come. The Dark Emperor naturally didn't dare to fight Shueshan at his peak. After all, Shueshan was a pinnacle grade 6 human sovereign, while the Dark Emperor was only a grade 2 human sovereign. But now, after suffering from Ning Yu's attack, Shueshan's strength had dropped to less than a fifth of his peak. There was no reason for the Dark Emperor to be afraid of Shueshan in this state. Rumble. The Dark Emperor's tail twitched as he instantly clashed with Shueshan. In the sky above the Ning family's martial field, the Dark Emperor and Shueshan fought intensely. On the surface, neither of them had the upper hand. But Ning Yu was clear. Shueshan's defeat was just a matter of time. As expected, Ning Yu's guess was right. 2 minutes later, the Dark Emperor grabbed the opportunity and wrapped his tail around Shueshan's neck, tossing him far away. Shueshan let out a miserable shriek as his aura dropped to the freezing point. Voila! Shueshan's sudden defeat caused the faces of everyone in the Nine Cauldron Divine Pavilion to change. Although the Nine Cauldron Divine Pavilion had sent over a dozen cultivators, there were only 3 of them. Shueshan under the 4th Elder, Fantai under the 3rd Elder, and He Wei, the right-hand man of the 2nd Elder. The 3 of them were all pinnacle grade 6 human sovereigns. Now that Shueshan was easily defeated by a dog, how could they not be shocked? Furthermore, that black dog was obedient to Ningyu. From this, they could see that Ningyu's strength was even more terrifying than the black dog. The strongest person on their side, Shueshan, couldn't even defeat a black dog, not to mention Ningyu. What are you doing? Suddenly, He Wei saw the Dark Emperor charging at Shueshan again, and he hurriedly rushed out. Swish! Fantai also charged out from behind He Wei. Shueshan was already heavily injured. If he was attacked by the Dark Emperor, he wouldn't be far from death. He Wei and Fantai knew that they couldn't let Shueshan die no matter what. The consequences weren't something they could bear. Shueshan was a subordinate of the 4th Elder, and the 4th Elder's strength could be ranked in the top 3 of the 9 Furnace Divine Pavilion. If Shueshan died with them, the consequences would be unimaginable. Shueshan could die, but not when he was with them. Boring. The Dark Emperor shrugged, then turned his head and flew to Ningyu's side. The Dark Emperor didn't have the guts to fight 1 against 2. Even when he fought with Shueshan, it was because Ningyu had heavily injured Shueshan. Otherwise, the Dark Emperor would not have foolishly gone to die. Go. All of you go and kill that black dog. I want to eat dog meat hot pot tonight. After being saved by Fantai and He Wei, Shueshan roared like a madman. If you keep shouting, I'll dig out your eyeballs and make them into wine. The Dark Emperor berated with a gloomy gaze. The Dark Emperor's scolding worked. Shueshan shut his mouth obediently and did not speak anymore. I have a question I want to ask. At this time, Ningyu said, Your 9th Furnace Divine Pavilion. Why do you have to make life difficult for me? From your first branches, Saint Sun, to Jioding the Venerable, to Great Elder Shintu Hao, it seems that I have offended everyone in your 9 Furnace Divine Pavilion. That's right. You have indeed offended the entire 9 Furnace Divine Pavilion. He Wei coldly said, Great Elder, 2nd Elder, 3rd Elder, 4th Elder, they have already jointly issued a 9 Furnace Divine Pavilion hunting order. As long as any martial artist of the 9 Furnace Divine Pavilion sees you, they will kill you without mercy. I'm very sorry. Your 9 Cauldron Divine Pavilion's Great Elder, Shindahao, might have to disappear for a period of time. Also, the 9 Cauldron Venerable has no way to return to the 9 Cauldron Divine Pavilion. Ningyu shrugged his shoulders and said apologetically, Ningyu, the one we are looking for is you. As long as you agree to return with us, we will pretend that today's matter never happened, and we will not do anything to the Ning family. Fantai took a step forward. His ice-cold eyes emitted some chilliness as he said coldly, Otherwise, we will have to start a massacre today. Noisy. As soon as Fantai's voice fell, Ningyu waved his hand and quickly rushed out. Chi-Chi. Ningyu's speed was extremely fast. He repeatedly waved the red demon's sword in his hand, slashing out several sword beams. Not good, retreat quickly. Fantai was not a fool. As soon as Ningyu attacked, he realized the seriousness of the situation and immediately retreated. My right hand, my right hand. I'm not willing to die like this. You are a demon. You are definitely a demon. How can a grade 2 supreme being have such powerful battle strength? You must be pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger. Shouts and shouts sounded from the Ning family's martial arts practice field. Almost every shout was accompanied by the death of a 9 Cauldron Divine Pavilion martial artist. Everything ended as quickly as it came. In just a few minutes, all the 9 Cauldron Divine Pavilion martial artists in the Ning family's martial arts practice field, besides Shueshan, Fantai, and He Wei, were all killed. Gulp. He Wei and the others swallowed their saliva as they turned to look at the martial artists who were killed. Strong. He was just too strong. Ningyu was only a grade 2 mortal supreme. How did he kill these grade 3 and grade 2 mortal supreme geniuses of a 9 Cauldron Divine Pavilion so easily? It was so much so that 1 or 2 4th and 5th grade human sovereigns were killed by Ningyu in a single move. This kind of combat power was truly terrifying. Ningyu, we want. Leave a way out, and it will be easier for us to meet in the future. Hiwei's face was gloomy as he scolded. If worst comes to worst, we'll just leave now and never go against the Ning family again. Fantai's face was also ugly. Capsized in a ditch. This time, they really capsized in a ditch. If they knew that Ningyu was so strong, they wouldn't have come even if they were beaten to death. Leave? Do you think you can still leave? Ningyu crossed his arms in front of his chest and stared at Fantai and Hiwei with interest. Ha ha ha. Fantai and Hiwei laughed wildly at the same time. Then they coldly said, "We are both peak grade 6 supreme beings. If you want to leave, you won't be able to stop us." Whoosh, whoosh. As their voices fell, Fantai and Hiwei's figures flashed, and they fled into the distance at an astonishing speed. Ningyu, you can't let them leave. Earthshaker hurriedly called out when he saw Fantai and Hiwei leave. It's fine. They can't leave. Ningyu waved his hand, indicating that Earthshaker could rest assured. Bang, bang. All of a sudden, 2 crisp sounds rang out. Hiwei and Fantai's figures were sent flying from the entrance of the martial arts field to the high platform at the center of the field. Puff, puff. Both of them spat out a mouthful of blood as their auras instantly dropped to the freezing point. Hiwei and Fantai's auras were even lower than the heavily injured Shueshan. Who is it? Their eyes were cold as they scolded. Buzz. 2 figures appeared in the sky above the martial arts field. Sword of Evil, Xielon. The 2 of them were none other than the Sword Reverend and Xielon. You. Chapter 11:15. Relocation. I have a few questions. As long as you answer them honestly, I can consider sparing your lives. Ningyu moved his feet and arrived before Hiwei and Fantai. He said indifferently, "First, who sent you here? What is your objective?" I already said that the Great Elder, Second Elder, Third Elder, and Fourth Elder have joined forces to issue a 9 Cauldron Divine Pavilion hunting order. If anyone from the 9 Cauldron Divine Pavilion sees you, they must attack you with all their strength. Hiwei said in a deep voice. Hee, looks like you won't shed a tear until you see your coffin. With a faint smile, Ningyu gave the Sword of Evil a meaningful look. The Sword of Evil understood and nodded. Then, his body became illusory. I'll talk. The main reason we came here this time was to bring you back. Hiwei immediately realized the severity of the situation when he saw the Sword Empyrean vanishing into thin air. However, it was already too late for Hiwei to realize what was going on. The Sword of Evil appeared beside him, clenched his right fist, and punched him in the chest. Bang! The Sword of Evil had already recovered to the 8th grade human supreme realm. Even Hiwei at his peak couldn't withstand his fists, let alone the injured Hiwei. With a muffled groan, Hiwei's eyes widened. He died on the spot. Hiss! Hiwei's sudden death caused Fantai's pupils to shrink and his body to tremble. I'm sorry for scaring you. Ningyu shrugged and said apologetically, as long as you answer me honestly, I promise I won't kill you. Now, you can start answering my question. The Second Elder, the Third Elder, and the Fourth Elder sent us here. Due to the previous example, Fantai had no choice but to become honest, saying, Our goal is to investigate the death of the Great Elder Shen Tu Hao, as well as the Pavilion Master Juding the Venerable. Looks like you guys aren't too stupid. You already know the truth of Juding the Venerable and Shen Tu Hao's deaths. Ningyu said lightly. The second question is, in the 9 Cauldrons Divine Pavilion, what is the strongest human supreme? Fantai did not answer Ningyu immediately. Instead, he pondered for a moment. After a moment, Fantai said, On the surface, the strongest people in the 9 Furnace Divine Pavilion are the 4 Grand Elders. Their cultivations are all at the 7th grade human supreme realm, but I know that there is a peerless genius in the 9 Furnace Divine Pavilion headquarters. That genius is only at the 3rd grade human supreme realm, but his strength is abnormally heaven-defying. How heaven-defying can the cultivation of a third-grade sovereign be? The Dark Emperor cast his lips aside. He did not believe Fantai's words. That genius is truly fierce. How do I say it? In his eyes, the nine-furnace divine pavilion is nothing more than a toy. Fantai explained after sorting out his thoughts. Plaything. Ningyu raised his eyebrows and became interested in that peerless genius. One last question. Where is the nine-furnace divine pavilion headquarters? The nine-furnace divine pavilion headquarters is not in the Granxia Empire, but... Fantai paused for a moment and did not continue. Speak, Ningyu said coldly. But that peerless genius moved the nine-furnace divine pavilion headquarters to Ling Tian City. Fantai seemed to have made a big decision as he gritted his teeth. What the F***CK? Ningyu was a little angry. What was the use of hemming and hawing here? That's right. What attitude does that peerless genius have towards me? Suddenly, Ningyu seemed to have thought of something and asked. The reason why we want to bring you back to the nine-furnace divine pavilion headquarters is largely because of that peerless genius. Fantai said hesitantly, because according to the third elder, he wants to execute you on the spot. Your third elder is too arrogant. His cultivation is only at the 7th grade human supreme realm. Yet he dares to say that he wants to execute Ningyu on the spot. The Dark Emperor curled his lips and said disdainfully, if Ningyu goes all out, let alone a 7th grade human supreme, he can even fight at 8th grade human supreme. No one will think you're mute if you don't speak. Ningyu fiercely glared at the Dark Emperor, then turned around and said, Sword of Evil, take Fantai away. I need to know everything about the nine-furnace divine pavilion. Yes, the Sword of Evil did not hesitate at all. He came to Fantai's side, grabbed his shoulder, and dragged him out of the martial stage. Ningyu, you can't go back on your words. You said you wouldn't kill me. Although Fantai was being dragged by the Sword of Evil, he still shouted like a madman. Don't worry, he won't kill you. An indifferent voice was transmitted into Fantai's mind. If you don't cooperate with the Sword of Evil, I can't guarantee what will happen. Hearing Ningyu's words, Fantai instantly became obedient. Indeed, his life was completely in the hands of Ningyu. If Ningyu wanted him to live, he would live. If Ningyu wanted him to die, he would not live. Grandpa, evacuate everyone and find a few people to clean up the martial stage. Ningyu slowly came to Ninghe's side and said, Try not to let anyone know about what happened today. No problem. The Ning family will not tell anyone about this. Ninghe guaranteed. Okay, I'll have a few words with everyone. Nodding his head, Ningyu swept his gaze across the metal-devouring demon lion and the others. If everything goes according to plan, I will set off for the capital tomorrow morning. When the time comes, you can temporarily stay in Tianxian City with the Ning family. 1 year. I won't interfere with where you want to go in a year's time. However, during this 1 year, you must ensure the safety of the Ning family. Earthshaker. As he spoke, Ningyu's gaze fell on Earthshaker. Your cultivation is the highest, at the pinnacle of the 6th grade human supreme realm. During my absence, I hope you can ensure the safety of the Ning family. This is for you. Whether you can advance to the 7th grade human supreme realm will depend on your luck. Swoosh! A cold light pierced through the void and landed in front of Earthshaker. Ha! Earthshaker's eyes and hands were sharp, and he firmly grasped it in his hand. Saint, thank you. Earthshaker opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Earthshaker was well aware of how precious the Shenyang pill was. Ningyu was right. Whether he could advance to the 7th grade human supreme realm depended on his luck. He was now a pinnacle of the 6th grade human supreme realm. If he still couldn't advance to the 7th grade human supreme realm with the help of the Shenyang pill, then his talent really didn't meet the requirements. Oyanglin, Duan Cheng, before going to the capital, I may go to Lingtian City. You can return to the capital first. Ningyu knew that Ouyang Luan and Duan Cheng definitely wouldn't stay in the Ning family. After all, one was the great Xia imperial ancestor, and the other was Dong He's last disciple. They would definitely return to the capital. Understood. Ouyang Luan and Duan Cheng said carefully. Chapter 11:16. The market tonight was destined to be a sleepless night in Tianjin City. Although the Ning family was the absolute overlord of Tianjin City on the surface, there were still various complicated forces hidden in Tianjin City. Especially in the recent period of time, there were already more than 10 new forces of various sizes rising in Tianjin City. Most of the supporters behind these forces were the Corpse Sect, the Blood God Palace, and even the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion. And they only had one purpose, and that was to monitor the Ning family. Tonight, Ningyu would go and meet them one by one. For those who had returned from the wrong path, Ningyu would incorporate them into the Ning family and make them permanent members of the Ning family. For those who refused to come to their senses, Ningyu would let them know what cruelty was. In any case, most of the people behind them were from the Corpse Sect and the Blood God Palace. As for killing the martial artists of the Corpse Sect and the Blood God Palace, Ningyu had no psychological burden at all. Late at night, Tianjin City was like a ferocious beast crawling on the ground. The dark night sky couldn't hide its ferocious face. Whoosh! Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, the next day arrived. When the first ray of sunlight shone on the ground, in front of the main gate of Ningyu City, Ningyu and the others were already ready to go. The people who set off at this time included Ningyu, the Sword of Evil, the Dark Emperor, Xiaolon, the Talisman Marshal Venerable, Yunmu, and others. As for Ouyang Luan and Duan Cheng, they had already set off for the capital last night. Grandfather, during the time I'm not here, if there is anything, try to discuss it with the Earthshaker. Don't act rashly. Ningyu said, I know this. You have to be careful when you are outside. Don't force yourself. Ningyu knew that Tianjin City was too small and couldn't restrain Ningyu. Not only Tianjin City, but even the Great Xia Kingdom wasn't a place where Ningyu could roam. Only the Black Moon Continent and the Heavenly Devil region could accommodate Ningyu. Furthermore, if he were to stay in Tianjin City, Ningyu would never be able to find his parents. Depart. Ningyu didn't bid them farewell. He waved his hand and took the lead to fly out of Tianjin City. After last night's hard work, the entire Tianjin City had become a solid piece of iron. Those who posed a threat to the Ning family were either recruited or expelled from Tianjin City. Some of the lackeys of the Yin Corpse Sect and the Blood God Palace were directly killed. Furthermore, the people in charge of the Blood God Palace and the Corpse Yin Sect in the Great Xia Kingdom had perished in battle, and the Ning clan had Earthshaker overseeing it. Thus, the Ning clan was extremely safe. After leaving Tianjin City, Ningyu's next stop was Ling Tian City. He learned from Fantai that the headquarters of the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion had been moved to Ling Tian City, and that peerless genius had also arrived. Ningyu wasn't a fool. The problems of the Yin Corpse Sect and the Blood God Palace had been temporarily solved. At present, only the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion still posed a threat to the Ning family. As long as the Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion was resolved, the Ning family would be very safe in the Great Xia Kingdom from now on. Ling Tian City. Located in the middle of Tianjin City and the capital, it was one of the top major cities in the Great Xia Kingdom. 2 days ago, several black-clothed martial artists suddenly appeared in the City Lord's mansion of Ling Tian City. These black-clothed martial artists indiscriminately controlled all the powerhouses in the City Lord's mansion. Even City Lord Ling Du was placed under house arrest in a secret room of the City Lord's mansion. Of course, the residents of Ling Tian City didn't know what happened in the City Lord's mansion. From their point of view, the City Lord's mansion was just a little strange. Everything else was the same. Sha. At noon, several figures suddenly appeared at the gate of Ling Tian City. Ling Tian City seems a little different from the other cities. Outside the city gate, Ningyu frowned slightly and muttered. These figures were Ningyu and the others. However, the Sword of Evil and Xiaolon weren't in the crowd. The two of them were hiding in the void, ready to deal with any danger that might come at any time. What difference can there be? It's just a little bigger. The Dark Emperor shrugged his shoulders and then moved towards Ling Tian City. Wait! Ningyu grabbed the Dark Emperor's shoulder and said in a deep voice, "Follow behind me. Don't speak without my permission." The feeling that Ling Tian City gave Ningyu was that it was very special. It was such a special city. It seemed that Fantai was right. The headquarters of a Nine Cauldrons Divine Pavilion had indeed moved to Ling Tian City. Why don't we call Fantai out and ask him? Why go through so much trouble? The Dark Emperor complained. In order not cause any trouble, Ningyu had the sword of evil hide in the void with Fantai. With the help of the law of space, even a 9th grade Supreme might not be able to find the exact location of the sword of evil in Fantai. Come, let's enter the city. Ningyu couldn't be bothered with the Dark Emperor. He concealed his aura and walked towards Ling Tian City. Mystic grade artifact. High-quality mystic grade artifact. It's cheap and good. Come take a look. Sir, do you want to stay in or take a break? A four-headed serpent's inner core. Only 100 mid-grade yuan crystals. As soon as Ningyu entered Ling Tian City, he heard all sorts of hawking. After a moment of silence, Ningyu decided to take a look at the market first. The forces in the market were complicated, and it was a good place to get some information. Ling Tian City Square. Ling Tian City Square was the largest market in Ling Tian City. There were hundreds of merchants in it. There were countless stalls on the ground. What do you want to buy? Artifacts, elixirs, herbs? As soon as Ningyu and the rest stepped into Ling Tian City Square, a manservant walked over with a smile. I've been hanging around in this market for years. I know every shop that has good stuff, and every shop that has fake stuff. Bring us to the biggest herb shop first. Ningyu threw a supreme grade yuan crystal to the manservant and said, "As long as you can satisfy me, yuan crystals won't be a problem." A supreme grade yuan crystal. Zhang Xiao Air caught the yuan crystal that Ningyu threw over with a face full of shock. He often acted as a tour guide for people here. If he met a generous boss, he might be rewarded with a mid-grade yuan crystal. Most of them were low-grade yuan crystals. Moreover, it wasn't a piece but half a piece. Now that Ningyu gave out a supreme-grade yuan crystal, Zhang Xiao Air's breathing quickened. TSK. It's actually a supreme-grade yuan crystal. Zhang Xiao Air really got lucky. Yeah, a supreme-grade yuan crystal. Zhang Xiao Air can't earn that much even if he works in the market for a year. Lucky? Hee. Don't forget the tyrant of the market, Xiehu. If Zhang Xiao Air earns a supreme-grade yuan crystal, Xiehu will most likely come out to snatch it. Swish! As expected, just as the last martial artist finished laughing, Zhang Xiao Air was blocked by 2 or 3 martial artists. Thank you. Xiehu, what do you want? Seeing the martial artists in front of him, Zhang Xiao Air trembled and his lips trembled. What do I want? This place is under my protection. Hand over that supreme-grade yuan crystal, and I can let you go. Otherwise, Chapter 11:17. Provoke. Xiehu, this top-grade origin crystal isn't mine. I haven't led the way for these people yet, so I feel guilty for taking this origin crystal. Zhang Xiao Air's face was filled with determination. Then, Zhang Xiao Air threw the supreme-grade yuan crystal at Ningyu and said, "Bosses, I can't do business with you today. Please find someone else." Because Zhang Xiao Air's cultivation was very low, the speed of the top-grade essence crystals he threw out was very slow. Xiehu's eyes were very sharp. Just as Zhang Xiao Air threw out the top-grade essence crystal, he stepped on the ground and firmly caught it. "Xiehu, hurry up and return the top-grade yuan crystal to this boss. It's not yours." Seeing Xiehu grab the top-grade essence crystal, Zhang Xiao Air was so angry that his whole body trembled. "Oh, did you eat a bear's heart and leopard's gall today?" Xiehu frowned and stared at Zhang Xiao Air with interest, saying, "In the past, when you saw me, it was like a mouse seeing a cat. Why did you dare to talk back to me today? That piece of supreme-grade essence crystal isn't yours. You can't take it." Zhang Xiao Air bit his lips, as if he had just made a huge decision. "Ha!" Xiaohu and his two companions roared with laughter. Who are these people? At this moment, Ningyu spoke. Ningyu asked Zhang Xiao heir. Could it be related to the city lord? They have nothing to do with the city lord, but they have a certain relationship with the owner of the Ling Tian market. As for the specifics, no one knows. Zhang Xiao heir hurriedly said, Boss, I will definitely help you get the top-grade yuan crystal back. Please wait a moment. Want? I'm standing right here. Let's see what you can do. Xiaohu crossed his arms in front of his chest and said sinisterly, Xiaohu, you can't do this. Huh. Zhang Xiao heir still wanted to argue, but he felt a burning sensation on his face. From today onwards, the Ling Tian City Square doesn't welcome you. Every time I see you in the city square, I'll beat you up until you're crippled. Xiaohu glared at Zhang Xiao heir and said, Let's go. Wait. Xiaohu and the others hadn't gone far when Ningyu's voice rang out. Originally, the matter between the two of you had nothing to do with me. However, that piece of top-grade origin crystal is mine. Aren't you being a little unkind by taking it away just like that? Honest? Ha ha ha. Xiaohu raised his eyebrows and laughed maniacally. Who do you think you are? How dare you talk about kindness with me? Xiaohu rolled his eyes and said, Since you want to talk about kindness with me, then let's talk about kindness. This is the Ling Tian City Square. The rules are that every cultivator who enters will get a piece of supreme-grade yuan crystal. If you have yuan crystals, you can enter. If you don't, get lost. Tossing the supreme-grade origin crystals in his hand, Xiaohu continued, There are 3 of you and a dog. That's a total of 4 supreme-grade origin crystals. You still need 3 more. Hand them over. Voila! Xiaohu's arrogant words attracted the attention of the surrounding martial artists. Probably only Xiaohu would do something like asking for 4 supreme-grade origin crystals in public. Xiaohu is crazy. Anyone who enters the Ling Tian City Square without a backer will be threatened by him. Isn't that right? Previously, a young city lord from another city came and was swindled by Xiaohu and the others of 10,000 medial-grade origin crystals. 10,000 medial-grade origin crystals is only 100 superior-grade origin crystals and 1 supreme-grade origin crystal. This time, Xiaohu wants to swindle 4 supreme-grade origin crystals from these hotheads. How lawless! There's no other way. Xiaohu's backer is the owner of the Ling Tian City Square. Ignoring the discussions of the crowd, Ningyu frowned slightly and said, Are you sure you want supreme-grade origin crystals from me? Cut the crap. 4 supreme-grade origin crystals. If you could take them out, come in. If you can't, get lost. Xiaohu said impatiently. Swoosh. At the same time, 2 cultivators stood in a room on the 2nd floor of the Ling Tian City Square. Boss Xia, I feel that these few cultivators are a little special. Isn't it inappropriate for Xia who to do this? One of the elders frowned slightly and said in a deep voice. The person called Boss Xia was around 40 years old. He had a square face and thick eyebrows. He said calmly, Don't ask about this. What you need to do is to pay attention to their actions and determine their real cultivation level. Why go through so much trouble? It's easy to find out their real cultivation level. Just ask them to come up and test them. The elders said, doubtfully. It's not as simple as you think. Boss Xie shook his head and said, The message from the city lord told us not to alert them. If we can test them, we should try our best. If we can't, we shouldn't expose ourselves. All right, I'll tell Xiaohu to be careful. The elder nodded. Then, his figure gradually entered the void and disappeared. That's right. That's right. Here are 3 supreme-grade origin crystals. I'm afraid you won't dare to take them. At the entrance of the market, Ningyu took out 3 supreme-grade origin crystals and said calmly, Toss them over. Xiaohu's eyes lit up and his face was filled with ecstasy. He said, Throw 3 supreme-grade origin crystals over. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Without hesitation, Ningyu tossed the 3 supreme-grade origin crystals to Xiaohu. After catching the 3 supreme-grade origin crystals, Xiaohu appeared excited on the surface. However, deep down, he was trying to come up with a plan. His mission was to test Ningyu's strength and determine his real cultivation level. not to ask for the supreme grade origin crystals. You too. Suddenly, Xiaohu's heart skipped a beat as he signaled to the two cultivators on his left and right. Zhang Song, Zhao Qiao. Their cultivation levels were not too low. They were both in the origin core realm. They did not reveal their cultivation levels in the market. To outsiders, they were only in the true martial realm. After receiving Xiaohu's order, they immediately surrounded Ningyu. Kid, we'd like to have a friendly match with you. If you win, we'll return the 4 supreme grade origin crystals to you. If you lose, you'll have to give us another 4 supreme grade origin crystals. Zhang Song said coldly. You can also take out another 4 supreme grade origin crystals. That way, there's no need for you to have a friendly match with us. Zhao Qiao said coldly. Ningyu did not reply immediately. Instead, he glanced at the second floor of the market and paused for a moment. He found us. With a glance from Ningyu, the old man and boss Xie's expressions changed instantly. I don't think so. We're both peak yin-yang realm cultivators. Unless his cultivation is higher than ours, he won't be able to find us. The old man shook his head and said, he must be looking in our direction. Don't worry. I hope so. I have a feeling that things aren't that simple. Boss Xie took a deep breath and mumbled, the City Lord's mansion has been acting strangely recently. I even suspect that the City Lord's mansion is under the control of some external forces. That's impossible. City Lord Ling Du's cultivation has reached the initial stage of the manifestation realm. Who could possibly control him? Chapter 11:18. The last chance, I have the primary crystals. I'm just afraid you won't dare to take them. Ningyu flicked his wrist, and a storage pouch appeared in his hand. Waving the storage pouch, Ningyu said, there are 10,000 pieces of supreme grade primary crystals in here. If you are capable, you can come and take them yourself. Whoosh. Hearing Ningyu's words, all the martial artists in the market revealed heated expressions. 10,000 pieces of supreme grade primary crystals. Most of the people in the market would never see so many primary crystals in their entire lives. Kid, hand over the storage pouch and we'll spare your life. Zhang Song and Zhao Qiao stared at the storage pouch in Ningyu's hand and scolded in unison. Otherwise, we'll show you why the flowers are so red. Are you guys stupid? Or is there something wrong with your hearing? Ningyu shrugged his shoulders and said, the primary crystals are here. Come and take them if you are capable. If you are not, then shut up. Let's go. Zhang Song and Zhao Tiao exchanged glances and dashed forward. Bang! Before they could get far, they seemed to have hit some kind of barrier and their bodies stopped in midair. What's going on? Have Zhang Song and the rest lost their minds? Why did they stop all of a sudden? I don't know. Did they notice something? Zhang Song and the rest are very strong. They always follow Xiaohu's orders in charge of the front. Could it be that they have received Xiaohu's orders for them to stop all of a sudden? The sudden change caused the surrounding cultivators to reveal doubtful expressions. They could not understand what was going on. What are you two doing? Hurry up and take action. Seeing that Zhang Song and Zhao Qiao had stopped, Xiaohu yelled, that's 10,000 pieces of supreme grade primary crystals. If you don't bring them over in 3 minutes, I'll take your lives. You want their lives? There's no need to go through so much trouble. I'll help. Ningyu waved his hand and said calmly. Bang! Bang! As soon as Ningyu's voice fell, Zhang Song and Zhao Tiao seemed to have encountered something frightening. Their bodies involuntarily flew backwards. The sound of flesh hitting the wall rang out. Zhang Song and Zhao Tiao collapsed to the ground like dead dogs. This is impossible. Xiaohu's eyes widened in disbelief. No one knew Zhang Song and Zhaohu's cultivation better than him. Yuan Dan realm, Zhang Song and Zhao who were both Yuan Dan realm martial artists. Even with the two of them working together, they couldn't even get close to the young man's body. Didn't that mean that the strength of the young man before him had reached a heaven-defying level? Hurry up and return. Thinking of this, Xiaohu immediately turned around and ran towards the second level of the market. Xiehu only had one thought in his mind, and that was to call for reinforcements. Over the years, Xiehu had seen many different kinds of people, and had also encountered many dangers. The dangers they encountered in the past, as long as Zhang Song and Zhao Qiao revealed their origin core stage cultivation, they could easily resolve it. This time it was different. He had encountered a tough opponent. In Xiehu's view, Ningyu's strength was at least peak Yuan Dan realm, or even higher. Dealing with a martial artist of this level, he could only ask the two powerhouses on the second level of the market to step forward. Swoosh! Although Xiehu's speed was fast, the Dark Emperor's speed was faster than him. Xiehu had just taken a few steps when the Dark Emperor blocked in front of him. Get lost from me. As the Dark Emperor's aura was not released, Xiehu thought that the Dark Emperor was just an ordinary dog. Slap, slap, slap. His dreams were great, but reality made Xiehu suffer. The Dark Emperor's tail twitched, repeatedly slapping Xiehu's face. Xiehu, who was slightly plump, directly turned into a pig's head after being whipped by the Dark Emperor. Tell me, who ordered you to do this? Ningyu moved his feet and came in front of Xiehu, saying coolly, No one instructed me. Today it's my bad luck to fall in your hands. Xiehu was rather unyielding as he said coldly, Haha, you still dare to be stubborn when you're about to die. With a faint smile, Ningyu looked left and right, then said in a clear voice, I'll give you one last chance. Come out and see me. Otherwise, at this point, Ningyu paused for a moment, then his eyes shot out two beams of cold light. Swoosh, swoosh. The cold light was very fast, arriving in front of Xiehu in the blink of an eye. Under Xiehu's horrified gaze, entered his mind. The moment the cold light entered his mind, Xiehu let out a hysterical scream. I don't want to say it twice. Ningyu's expression completely darkened. Since the people behind him did not know how to appreciate favors, then he could only teach them a lesson. Ha ha! Heroes indeed come from the young. I didn't believe in the past, but now that I've seen it, it's indeed extraordinary. The lethality of Ningyu's words was quite great. A loud laugh came from the second level of the market. Swoosh! Swoosh! Immediately, two figures tore through the void and landed in front of Xiehu in the blink of an eye. Let me introduce myself. I'm Xie Chong, and this is Hu Hai. We're the people in charge of Lingtian Market. After one of the figures landed, he said directly, What did Xiehu do to offend you, young hero? I hope you won't take offense. Come, let's talk inside. There are many people in the market, and Ningyu did not want to communicate with Xie Chong and the rest here. With both feet on the ground, Ningyu disappeared in the blink of an eye. Behind Ningyu, the Dark Emperor, the Talisman Martial Supremacy, and Yun Mu followed closely. Puss! Seeing Ningyu and the rest suddenly disappear, Xie Chong and Hu Hai gasped. Initially, they thought that Ningyu's strength was at most Yin-Yang realm, and it was impossible for him to reach Manifestation realm. But now they changed their minds. Ningyu's strength was at least Manifestation realm. Should we inform the city lord residents? Xie Chong looked at Hu Hai and said softly, We must, Hu Hai said. Swoosh! Before Hu Hai finished speaking, a strong gust of wind blew, and black fog rose. Rumble! After the black fog dissipated, the martial artists in the market were dumbfounded. That was because they realized that Hu Hai and Xie Chong, who were standing on the spot just now, had both disappeared. Tell me, who ordered you guys to do this? At the same time, in a room on the second level of the market, Ningyu sat on a chair, and in front of him, Hu Hai and Xie Chong stood on the spot, trembling with fear. They were standing on the same spot just now, but they suddenly lost consciousness. When they woke up, they realized that the young man sitting on the chair in front of them was Ningyu. We really can't say it. If we dare to say it, we'll definitely be killed. Xie Chong gritted his teeth and said, Don't ask. Anyway, we won't harm you. Dong, dong, dong. Ningyu tapped the table lightly with his palm and said indifferently, I have a habit. I'm very friendly to my friends, but to my enemies, I've always been ruthless. Stab. After following by Ningyu's side for so long, the Dark Emperor could understand Ningyu's words very well. You're tuning into the warrior lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.